and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. I'm going to have Lorene Berglund call the roll, please.
Linda Avanzado. Here. Mel Boyd Benson.
Here.
John Bascardin.
Here.
Larry Cerisi.
Here.
William Mudge.
Here.
Kimberly Page. Here. Richard Welsh.
Here.
Julia Held. Here. Student representative. Thank you.
Lorene, if you could please call the calendars.
May 28th, Memorial Day holiday. All schools and offices closed. May 30th, Facilities Subcommittee meeting, 4:30 p.m. Quidnessa Elementary. This is a recent addition to the calendar. June 6th, Wellness Committee meeting, 3:30 p.m., Central Administration Building. June 8th, North Kingstown High School graduation, 6 p.m., Ryan Center. June 11th, CLAC meeting, 7 p.m., Central Administration Building. June 12th, School Committee retiree reception, 6:15 to 7 p.m., North Kingstown High School cafeteria. June 12th, School Committee work session, 7 p.m., North Kingstown High School auditorium. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next thing on our agenda is we have a presentation by the group Healthy Places by Design. So I'll ask Denise Kaplan and whoever else is here with her to come on up and tell us about what has been going on in the town of North Kingstown. You can come up here to the mic and tell us what you've been doing.
This is Emily Nance. She's also from the YMCA. She's our Arts and Humanities Director. Healthy Places by Design is a project in collaboration between the town of North Kingstown and the YMCA. The town of North Kingstown invited the YMCA to be its community business partner in this project. And the project's goal is to determine what is going on in our community that either supports or doesn't support health. This grant money has been provided to us from the Rhode Island Department of Health, and they received their money from the CDC. This project started in August, where the project team participated in a training program that really grounded us in what the work entails. And in September, we started really developing a lot of assessment tools that would help gauge what's going on in our community. Some of them were online surveys, paper surveys, face-to-face conversations, one-on-one meetings, and lots of outreach, very similar to this, where we would come to organizations like the Rotary, the Chamber, and have conversations about what's happening and what's not happening in town. You may have heard that there was a community design summit. Everybody was invited to that, and there's a lot of familiar faces that participated, and our community told us what they feel could be done, a vision that could be made for our community in 4 key areas. Those areas are walking and biking, villages, neighborhoods, access to healthy food, and I'm seizing on the other one, public spaces, recreation. So there has now been a conclusion, if you will, to the design process. Our community really, truly did design. They spent time drawing on maps, and they spent time creating program ideas, and there's all that information is available on the town's website under the planning department's link, and then from there there's Healthy Places by Design, and you can see all those drawings and maps that our community has put together. And as a result of that, 4 working groups have emerged, and they're working very hard on presenting and going forward with this work. So there's a subtle but very strategic, and I don't mean it's subtle but very concentrated effort, changing the work from the planning department and the YMCA to our community where the work is being taken forward. It's not a one-stop shopping kind of project where there's something that's done, it's put up on a website, but instead these groups are working forward. So for instance, Emily here is in charge of a subcommittee under the Access to Healthy Food, and she's working on community gardens. We'll talk a little bit more about that. walking and biking, that group has really, they're probably the largest group, and they're looking at how can we make walking and biking a more safe and enjoyable aspect of our community. So, for instance, a short-term goal is how can we add paint? Simple, more less expensive option. How can we add paint to the shoulders of the roads to create more of a visual reminder to our drivers that pass through town that this may be a walking and biking area? That's a short-term goal. That project was identified through a walkabout. We had Mark Fenton. He's a walking expert in the community, in the nation, and he also identified some short-term, easy-to-implement solutions. He has also shown us how to do a walkabout, and our outreach to the teens right here in the high school. We spoke to, probably over 200 teens between the YMCA, between meeting them at the farmers markets and being invited here to our classes. They have told us that this area around the high school and also our other schools can be a bit of a challenge. They told us some stories about going home 3 times to change because they were doused by cars, because there was no way for them to walk on something other than the road. But we all know those stories. So that is a short-term goal. They're talking about how can we do more walkabouts so we can document what would be the opportunities for changing that. The Kokum-Skusik State Park is also being identified as a potential area where trail development could happen to connect different villages and neighborhoods, the north side of town, Wickford Village, and then into Wickford Junction. Long-term goals would be Post Road. What can we do with Post Road to make that more walkable and bikeable? Moving on to villages and neighborhoods, we're looking at how can we restore the historic nature of our villages and what can be done to make them more of a community center for the residents that live in those areas. On the aspect of public spaces and recreation, we have developed a relationship with Leisure Services, and together they are working with the working group to provide advisory as to what signage can be done around our parks. We found out a lot of our residents don't know about the resources we have in our community. So they want to know a little bit more about, well, when I go to Rome Point, how long is it? Once I park here, what's beyond all that? So already the working group and Leisure Services, working together with the town, has updated its current recreation material, and that will soon be available to our residents. And they've also created an interactive map that's just about ready to be released. You click on it online, it pops up with a description as to how far the trail is, where it's located, what amenities are available at each recreation area. Also, moving forward to access to healthy food, a couple great initiatives are happening there. As you may have heard from our food services, right here in the high school, Trish is working on a composting program where she's using food scrap, and that scrap will be taken away, I believe, by a farmer, and the farmer in our community will use that to enrich their compost material. So a great way to deal with that stuff. So that's part of access to healthy food. But also, the YMCA has created a program in partnership with Farm Fresh Rhode Island, and it's increasing access to healthy food through a Veggie Box program, and that program is delivered by Farm Fresh Rhode Island. That's available to all of the community. That starts in July. You can come to the YMCA and you can pick up your box of fresh fruits and vegetables. And how does that increase access? Well, the YMCA happens to be on Post Road. It happens to be right at a bus stop, so it makes it kind of an easy-to-implement solution for some folks who may not be able to get to different areas of our town. Emily's working on the garden subcommittee. Do you want to say a few words about the work? Are you prepared to do that today?
Sure. We have...
Get close to the mic. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. We have met a number of times to sort of identify what our priorities are in terms of forming a community garden. The idea of the community garden and the need for it was identified through the extensive process that Denise just described. I've been working with a pretty consistent group over the last couple months of about 7 or so people that are really committed to the idea of getting a community garden off the ground. We've identified some priorities to reach our goals of access for communities that wouldn't have a lot of other access, either in their own yards or easy access to, say, the farmers markets that are on the south side of town. So we have, and we've been working with the planning department to identify open space that might be available, and we've gone through a process, walking through with the town engineer to sort of identify which of those spaces are actually feasible for gardening. And we've identified our top choice as being part of the field at Davisville Elementary. That serves an area that's very reasonably walkable. It's a tight neighborhood with a lot of residents of those neighborhoods that don't have a lot of their own space and it's not easily accessible necessarily to other parts of town. And as I said, the town engineer has looked at that and seen that it is a pretty feasible site for gardening. So our next steps are to try and make that happen, get everybody on board to see if we can make that property happen.
Just to add, when Emily's talking about feasibility and why Davisville may be a site that's probably more favorable than others, it has a fence, so it protects from animals. It has access to water, and as Emily mentioned, it has the community density and the community desirability. So going forward, I believe the subcommittee will want to engage the school committee and find out what next steps may be required. But that's not why we're here. We just wanted to really make sure that the school committee was aware of this work. It definitely impacts the students. It definitely impacts the working environment for the school department. And as we all know, and I don't like to beat a dead horse on this one, but a healthy student is a good student. So we really want to continue to work together through these working groups, and from time to time we will probably need to reach out to the school committee, and we would really appreciate your support. And we are here for you too. So if at any time you want to see what the working groups are doing, or if you have a question, or if you're interested in what collaborations can be done, please feel free to either contact the planning department or come find us at the YMCA. And I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So this was a presentation for us tonight. Denise is on the Wellness Committee, and she had asked if she could come and present to the group as to what they have been doing since they've already presented to the Town Council. And as she said, if you have any further questions for her, feel free to contact her, and she'll be more than happy to answer those for us. That'd be great. All right. Before we move into citizens' comments, I'm going to let Dr. Auger speak. We have about 12 people who have signed up. After these 12 people have spoken, then I'll be more than, if there's anybody who forgot to sign up, you can let us know. Before Dr. Auger starts, I will say tonight is a business meeting, so what that means is we take citizens' comments at the beginning, and we don't take them before each vote. So if you wish to speak, you need to speak at the beginning. It also, in the citizens' comments, it is your time to comment to us. We ask for people to comment on things on the agenda. However, it does not have to be on the agenda. So feel free to speak on whatever you would like to speak. We will give you 3 minutes, and it will be your time to speak to us. We will not comment afterwards. Saying that, though, I am going to allow Dr. Auger to comment prior. So.
Thank you. I know that there are a number of people here tonight to talk about two different things. One is the budget, and another is the Quidnessa roof. I understand there was quite a discussion last night at the Town Council meeting that I was unable to attend. I just want people to know that, I hope there isn't a feeling out there that the school administration is not taking this very seriously. This has been a problem for obviously some time. It has been growing in my own knowledge for a few months now. I can recall advocating for the bond for the Davisville Middle School roof at Quidnessa and sitting right in front of open ceiling tiles because in the library area there was a leak. Since that time, that particular leak has been taken care of, but other leaks have sprouted up. Most specifically, and the most disruptive, has been in the second grade area, and I see Mrs. Wilson here tonight in her classroom. And it looks awful. It is not a desirable situation, and it is something that is very frustrating, most of all, to Mrs. Wilson and to her class and to the parents of that class. And I completely understand that. I just want to give you a sense of the kinds of things that have been going on in the last week or so in dealing with this issue. Every time, for instance, every time it has rained in the last few months, and we've had reports of leaks, we have had people from Eagle Cornice, the people who have installed this roof, and people from Sonafil engaged, coming to see this, our own people going on the roof, inspecting, looking for the ways that the water is getting into that roof. It is unacceptable to have to keep doing this over and over again, and like I said, it's a source of enormous frustration for all of us. About a week ago, around the 15th of May, there was very heavy wind and rain, and that was a real soaker for that second grade classroom. The installer and the manufacturer were contacted regarding the emergency situation. The manufacturer was on site to see the damage and make repairs. Plastic was installed over the second grade classroom area. Some damage to personal property that was replaced. There was no significant wetness in the carpets, but humidifiers and fans were utilized by facility staff in the area to be sure carpets were dry. Damaged books were removed from bookshelf areas and remaining items were covered with additional tarps. Those tarps do not look pretty, and they're certainly not the kind of atmosphere I would want kids to be learning in. But they recommended to us to do that route, at least initially, in order to keep the carpets from getting wet and as part of the strategy to keep the area dry. And that's one of the reasons why for several days after something like this we leave ceiling tiles off of the grid so that air can get into that area and not cause mold. Jim Larissa, the Assistant Director of the Rhode Island Department for Labor and Training, Division of Occupational Safety, was on site to address the complaint received that alleged wet carpets, smell of mold, adverse health effects on employees and students. Mr. Larissa reviewed the second grade area in question and went on the roof. He was given a copy of the recent April 2012 air quality test, which revealed no fungal issues. He spoke at the Quidnessa school to the Quidnessa school nurse regarding health complaints. All complaints he received were unsubstantiated. He stated on Friday that he was unable to corroborate the complaint, and his report will reflect as such. Later, on 5/21, in teleconference with RIDE school construction officials responding to a complaint from Mr. McGuinn to Commissioner Gist. Information provided to RIDE regarding air quality testing taken in April, as well as ongoing work being done by the school department, was given. RIDE communicated that the school department is following the correct steps. On 5/21 and 5/22, there was significant rain. That is where we are now. There were no leaks in that second grade classroom area or the gym. So the last work that Sonafil did seems to be working. We're still monitoring that, and the only way you can find out is when it rains. The small leak in the cafeteria that is not related to this issue, but instead an old HVAC unit that has poor tubing that will be addressed with new bond dollars. Ms. Larissa from the DLT called to say that he received 3 phone calls that water was, quote, pouring into the building and that he needed to get down there immediately. That was this morning. Ms. Larissa was informed that this was absolutely not correct and that the plastic that was retained in the second grade classroom area was in fact dry. Mr. Larissa indicated that his report from last Friday was at his supervisor and should be released to us this week. His report, he again stated, could not substantiate the complaint he received. The representative from the manufacturer came today, was on site to inspect the areas that were repaired last week. Today, also, on request of the town fire marshal, building inspector, and electrical inspector were sent to Quidnessa by request of the town council to investigate possible life safety issues related to water damage. All stated that they did not see any life safety issues. And this was communicated to me by Mr. Embry. So, I just want people to know. I hope there is not any insinuation that, I or the members of this committee or administration are taking this lightly. This is something that every day is something that I am monitoring. I want absolute assurances from the people who have put this roof up and the manufacturer that they are going to take care of this. As I think people understand, this roof is still under warranty. It's not as old as the Davisville roof. And therefore, we are trying for a long-term fix to get this paid for this summer, hopefully, without using any taxpayer dollars, that this will be covered by those companies that installed it and manufactured it. There's a little ways to go with that, obviously. There's a lot of discussion and all that. We have engaged our facilities subcommittee. They are great people. They are very knowledgeable about roofs, and they're the right people to advise us on these issues. And we're doing that as soon as we possibly can. I can't go any faster. So, I need you to know, with those long-term repairs in sight, I'm very hopeful about the long-term, use of that roof. I am also doing everything I can to badger these organizations and to work with our own people to make sure that we are addressing every leak in that building as soon as it happens right away. Some have stated that, I saw Mr. McGuinn, for instance, contacted the commissioner herself to ask the commissioner to tell me to send all of the kids to Quidnessa to Davisville Elementary School. I don't think that is a feasible solution at this time. I don't think that this occasion has risen to that kind of a move, which would probably take a few weeks just to organize if it were anything that we would want to do in the first place. So, while I take this very seriously, and I know the people on this stage do as well, I just don't want to get to a point where we're going overboard and that we are overreacting. And I know when I say that word, there are certain people who say there's no way you can overreact to this, especially if you've had to teach second graders in that environment. I get it. But we're doing everything that we can. And there is no group that wants this to happen as much as the people at this table. So we are with you. And I just want you to know that when you come to the mic tonight to talk about these issues, that, I'm trying to do everything that I can, and I know the people on this stage are as well. And if we need to, I'd like to do this with the warranty dollars. That's why we have a warranty, and that's what we should be going to. If we need to use other dollars, I know there has been discussion about looking at the $1.85 million left in that $9 million bond from 2004. If that becomes a feasible solution to some or part of this, I welcome it, and I would be happy to go down that road. Some of these things can be very difficult. As you know, this committee asked the town council about a month and a half ago to address our capital improvement plan with projects like rugs, with projects like roofing fixtures and that sort of thing. The council did not fund it at all. The council advised us you should try to find the money on your own, in fact. In fact, that night, they said you didn't even have a capital improvement plan that had items prioritized on it. That was false. We did have a capital improvement plan that was approved by this group in November. Mr. Embry knew about it. I even invited him to go to the asset management meeting to present it to them. But the going knowledge on the stage that night was that not only did we not have it, we didn't have it prioritized. That was just false, but there was no open mic that night. I couldn't get up to the stage to let them know that, and they never asked me the question prior to the meeting. So I'm welcoming of any help I can get from the town to address the many needed maintenance issues in this district, this being the one that is in front of us right now. And I hope you will join me in that. Right now, with the resources we have, we're doing the absolute best we can. I hope that this fixture to the second grade classroom and some of the others are going to be permanently addressed. It looks like this fix has taken hold in the second grade classroom, and I'm happy for that, but we're going to keep monitoring it. And that's for the short term to get us through the end of the school year. But I am going to be the first person pressing as much as I can to get a long-term fix on that Quidnessa roof so these problems don't happen again. It's not the right environment to be teaching kids or for anyone to be working in. So, that being said, I just want to move to the budget at this point. Okay. You want me to wait on the budget till that comes up? Okay. I'll hold off on that.
May I respond to those comments, please?
No, this is citizens' comments time, so the citizens are going to comment, and we have the first person who signed up on the list is Denise Kaplan, and then Dave Marble. There is no point of order. Our agenda says we are going from presentations, recognitions to citizens' comments. There are citizens who would like to comment, so I'm going to let them comment.
I offered a point of order, you didn't ask.
No, in a point of order, you tell me what the parliamentary procedure is that has been incorrectly taken. So you have not given me a point of parliamentary procedure that is incorrect. I'm following the agenda, and this is the next item on the agenda.
Well, by point of order, you're not following the agenda.
No, right now, it is citizens' comments.
My point of order is you didn't give me an opportunity to state what was my point of order.
What is your point of order? We're following the agenda.
My point of order is
You're not.
I wanted to ask Dr. O'Jay, when he receives the correspondence from the factories or the other people whom he mentioned, would he mind?
This is not a parliamentary procedure. We're moving on to citizens' comments. If you would like to ask him a question that is not on the agenda, you may do that at the break, or if you have something that is on the agenda, you may ask at that point.
That's not on the agenda.
Citizens'
Be
comments.
prepared to go before the Ethics Commission, because I am tired of this.
I have a point of order. Point of order? You did not follow the agenda? Time for a walk. And apparently, Dr.
I'm going to overrule your point of order and get to citizens' comments.
It says citizens' comments, yet before that...
Citizens' comments. Denise Kaplan, would you like to come up and
Thank
speak?
you very much.
Oh. Okay, Dave Marble, and then Amanda Kirkudis. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Please state, everyone should please state your name and your address for the record. And as I said, everyone will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Dave Marble, 8 Kristen Lane, North Kingstown, Rhode Island. Thank you for the wonderful segue. That's what I was going to talk about. Exactly what happened right here. As a representative of a group that is doing everything in its power to try to help, with a bunch of volunteers that go out and work on fundraising activities to help our kids get the kind of experience that they deserve at this school, I am constantly dismayed at the behavior of this group, and quite honestly, those who went to the town council, I said the same thing to them, just FYI. I've been on many board of directors over the years. Board of directors have disagreements. It's a logical thing to do. These are complex subjects. It's not easy. We have disagreements, right? And this is a public forum, and we can have disagreements. But when we're all said and done, we put together strategic plans, and we go forward with them. If I'm on the board of directors of a company, a high technology company, and I don't get my way because I put too much into engineering and I didn't agree with that, I don't write a letter to the editor saying that they put too much into engineering where we've lost our way. I don't do that. We've had letters to the editor going out from all sides here saying, it's signed by 4 people, it's signed by 1 person, it's signed by... And it goes out into the public. And my constituency of boosters that are trying to raise money say, why are we trying to help? They can't even agree with themselves. And if I'm sitting on the town council side, I'm not going to give the money either, because you can't agree with yourselves. I don't know if we need a PR director that puts it all together and says, this is the plan, yeah, you didn't get this and you didn't get this, but this is our plan and this is the best we could do at this time. Then what are we doing? I don't get it. We need to get together, folks. I've talked to a lot of you individually. Individually, you're all working hard to get this together. And yeah, you don't agree with everything. But when you come out to the public and you show us what you're doing, you got to get more together. I don't know how else to say it. And I said it to the town council, and I said, and I'm saying it to you individually. This is a strategic plan that we're putting together on behalf of our kids to give the best possible experience in North Kingstown high schools. And to me, that's not just the basic education plan. It's the experience that they deserve with all the co-curricular activities that we're now, Dr. Auger is going to talk about which ones he's going to cut. Okay? Well, that's great. And all I can say is, if we don't get it together here and go forward with a unified plan that everybody agrees with, how's the town council going to give us anything? That's the next battle. The town council and the school committee need to get together, but at least let's get our act together. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda Kirkudis is next, and then Kim Wilson.
Amanda Kirkudis. Do I have to give you my address? 19 Lantern Lane.
Thank you.
I'm here to speak about Quidnessa Elementary School and the problems that we've had with the leaking and the mold and our concern. I'm here to represent our students and the faculty that work there. In the summer, we were told that we were not able to set up our classrooms early in August because they were remodeling. And then we are finally allowed in, and we find out that it wasn't for remodeling, it was because there was mold, and that they were addressing that issue and taking care of it. Mold is a very big concern. Several teachers at our school have young children. We can't always find someone to watch them, so when we set up, we have to bring them. A colleague set up an area on her carpet in her classroom with a very young baby and then her toddler. Again, that's very scary, knowing that there could be mold there. The baby's crawling on there, puts their fingers in their mouth. Again, very scary. Students in second grade were always on the floor. We are playing math games. We do science experiments. Unfortunately, if they drop their snack on the floor, they will pick it up and eat it. We try to remind them not to do these things. We take the time to clean their desks every week. We clean their tables every single day to just try to prevent anything that we can. I've been teaching for 11 years, and I have never seen so many students with health problems. I have about 3 students that have had several nosebleeds, and they're just sitting doing their work, and then their nose just starts to bleed. I have some with asthma problems. They never had an inhaler. Now they have an inhaler. Some have problems with their eyes. Faculty members have also. One had a serious nosebleed, and it lasted like several days. Other ones had more respiratory problems. Then another concern is when we did have the major leak, there was, I think 6 trash buckets collecting all the water. Kids couldn't walk into the room without getting wet. It was on the carpets because that was before the buckets were in place. It did get on materials. It got on cubbies. It got on students' coats and backpacks. It's a concern as well because then the repair people came, and it's during the school day. Second grade, they're very easily distracted. There's, I don't know how many people up on ladders talking. They had the plastic. They had the ceiling tiles. Students had to go to the bathroom because that's where they could see it. Some of my students offered to help them, giving them things like a tool that they saw. So again, very unsafe. Not only is it unsafe, but like I said, it's very distracting. No one was listening to me, I can assure you. They were more concerned about that. They were worried about, the other tiles coming down. They were worried. They're second graders. Not only is the mold a concern for all of us, because you won't really know if that's a problem until later on, when the health problems can occur. If the tile is wet, it's very slippery. And you know, second grade and first grade, and it's in the hallway, kids can be running, they'll slip, they can get hurt very easily. One of the leaks happens to be near the computers, near the outlets, which again is not a safe. So I'm basically just here to say that it is very serious. I was concerned that we weren't told about the mold in the very beginning, that we had to find out about it through other means. And again, we're just trying to advocate for the safety of our students and other people that we work with. We want what's best for them. We're not trying to be troublemakers or complainers. We're really just trying to have what's best for the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim Wilson, and then Amanda Riccio.
Good evening. I'm Kim Wilson. I'm a second grade teacher at Quidnessa Elementary School. My room has been affected by the leaks, not just during the big storm or rain and windstorm that we had, but several months ago as well. And at that time, just the ceiling tiles were replaced, and then the leak came back again. There was no plastic. The water came down in buckets, splashed when it hit the buckets because it's coming from the ceiling, and splashed over everything. The water is not clear water. It has a rusty color to it. And you can see if you go to Quidnessa's library and look on the rug where the huge leak was, there's a big rust stain there. The size, not really good, say a big 10-foot in diameter, whatever, of a stain that has never been cleaned. So even though they've had the leaks and maybe the library's not leaking right now, it is still stained. Rugs have not been cleaned properly. I don't know if there's mold growing in the rugs. I know that the air was tested. Does that mean that the actual material, like the carpet, has been tested? I don't know. Is there anything under the carpet? My room had the aspergillus, I can't even pronounce it, mold over the summer. I was setting up while that mold was there. I was unaware. I was told that we could not set up, and when we left, that we could not come back to continue to set up because they were remodeling bathrooms, when in fact, I was told later it was because they had to spray all the carpets. And all my furniture was on plastic, all the kids' furniture was on plastic, the chairs, to prevent it from touching the chemicals that were in the carpet at that time. Parents were not notified, staff was not notified. We asked several times to get some documentation for the health and safety of the staff and the children, and we were not given any documentation or nothing about the mold at all. We had to, I think it was months later. I just have a few quick questions. I know time is limited. Recently, I know the air quality test has been done. The air condition has been cranking for the past couple of weeks. We're all freezing in the building, so I don't know if that's to help dry up the carpets. I'm not sure if that affects the testing. The dehumidifier was on one day only. The rugs have never been treated in my room at all. There was a fan on it. Nothing has been done. I asked the custodians. I was told by one person it had been done, and the custodian said that was a lie. The carbon dioxide levels elevated. We were told that we could open windows and doors. Unfortunately, I do not have one window in my room, and I do not have any doors. So I don't know how I can get some air in there. The nurses, children go into the nurse. I do have all the slips. If you'd like to see them, I saved my nurse's slips, and they're signed by the nurse. My students have gone for nosebleeds as well. It has been documented. I'm not saying it's because of the area. It could be the winter, the dryness. I'm just saying there has been nosebleeds. I had a student who started her inhaler again, and they've had routine coughs. I'm wondering why everything is silent, and why we're not being notified of what's going on, what has been done in great detail. And why did it take so long? Because I've been there since we've had leaks over the past several years. I've been there for 8 years, and it's been ongoing. We've been talking about it for years, and so I'm wondering why we're still talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy Riccio, and then Christine Volvucci. I'm really sorry if I'm mispronouncing people's names.
Hi, Amy Riccio. I live on Arcadia. I'm concerned about the mold in the classroom. We've received two reports, well, not received two reports, they came to us. It says here that back in August, there was Gerard Bliss Incorporated, the occupational health and safety consultant, came out. In here it says there is clearly a mold infestation in the classroom. What has been done to fix that, if anything? It says that the risk of health problems is significant. My son is in Mrs. Wilson's class, and he's complaining now about going to school because of the wet, because of the drips from the ceiling. They had to actually walk under dripping water to get into their classroom at one point. Their books have been damaged. The actual class library books have been damaged. He's been coughing for months now, just a dry cough with no reason for it. I'm just wondering if it's the mold. I just don't understand how a report can come out and state that clearly there is a mold infestation and nothing has been done about it. I'm just really concerned about my son's health. That's really it. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's up to you. I can just say it quickly. I just want to point out that, the mold infestation, as it's been called, this was an issue that happened last summer while some construction work was going on. So if you were told that this was a delay because of construction work, it was a delay because of construction work. The construction work, in fact, was delayed because what we found was there was mold on the floor, and that had to do with creeping up through the slab in a certain area where we were doing construction on new sinks. And that had nothing to do with rainwater coming into the building, as what I have been told by experts who have analyzed the situation. So, I just want to be clear. There has been a mold issue. It is not related to the rainwater coming into the building. We have tested 3 times this year since that situation, and we have found that there are no unsafe levels of mold in that building. And we've tested in a number of different places, and those tests get pretty expensive. So, there's been a lot of testing to make sure that things are safe. And all the readings we're getting back tell us that they're safe. So, I just wanted to clarify that one point. I'm sorry.
Christine, and then Lisa Kilduff.
Hi, I'm Christine Bellucci, and I live in Arcadia Drive. And I'm just here as a parent, just concerned about my kids going to the school. I don't have anything new to add that, everybody else has already discussed. But I guess I'm just a little concerned also about the lack of communication that I've been getting. I just kind of found out about this stuff the other day. I didn't know there were many garbage buckets collecting water. I didn't know my child had to, go run under, rainwater and all these different things. And it kind of sickened me. Then I find out about the mold and, wet carpets and no ground fault interrupters and this and that and the other and just all these things. It just makes you scared as a parent. And I'm just kind of here just to express my concern on behalf of my child. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Kilduff, and then Jim McGuinn.
Hi. I'm here just as another concerned parent. My child is an 8-year-old in one of the second grade classes, and he goes to school every day with, he doesn't mind the rain, actually. He actually thinks it's fun when he can splash in the water. So to him, it's not an issue. For me, it's a health and safety concern. I'm not here to point fingers. We just want it resolved. I know we're saying we're doing a lot of different things to resolve it, but when yesterday, as a matter of fact, a parent called the superintendent's office, and they did ask about the serious health concerns. Is there mold? And they were told, and I quote, "The testing has been completed, and all the testing has come back negative for mold." Now, I understand you just had stated that this mold report from Gerard Bliss back in April was due to some sink.
That was a different issue altogether.
Oh, okay. 'Cause this-
There's been no issues related to rainwater coming in, and that's been all year long.
Well, this report indicates that in the second grade classroom, the content is very high, 54,000 counts per cubic meter, which the guideline is supposed to be 2,500. And that was from Gerard Bliss, the Occupational Health and Safety Consultants. And they stated it was in the second grade classroom. My son doesn't have a sink in his classroom, so where would the water have come from? So it's just a concern.
I'll clarify at the end.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay.
Sorry.
I would have a lot more confidence if when we called the offices and they acknowledged and said, yes, we're working on it, we're doing things. But, I mean, if someone, as of yesterday, stated there isn't any, and if that's what you believe there isn't any, I guess I would prefer to see proof that there isn't any versus the fact that when I do walk in there, and I know you said it doesn't look pretty with garbage bags, I'm not worried about the cosmetics. I'm worried about the health and safety of my child going to school in a classroom like this every day. This report was in August. We are 9 months later still having a discussion. Now, I know they say this rain was going on for years. I just know about it for the last 9 months. My son has been playing in water in his classroom, and I know I'm making light of it. He thinks it's great. Like I said, it doesn't matter to him. I don't care who's responsible. I just want to get it resolved as quickly as we can. And, going back and forth and saying we're doing different things, but I don't see the results. I still see trash bags. And again, I don't care about the cosmetics. I care about the health, safety, and just being dry. School's going to be over soon, but he's going to be there again next year. Right now, he's in the middle of a classroom that he thinks it's fun he can tap in the water sometimes. I just have concerns not only with the health, with the mold, but then some, electrical issues, which, again, I don't know anything about electrics. I just know that was brought up, and, if he's in an area in which there's some electrical and he's splashing in water, and again, I'm saying splashing in water, that's not a daily occurrence. He had made a joke that he was playing in the water. That was probably one time when there was an excess of rain or something to that effect. So I'm not, pushing that point. It's just a fact. So however we can get this resolved, that's why I'm here. I'm pleading to the council so that we can really just resolve the problem. That's all I care about, to be honest with you. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim McGuinn, and then Jose Iniguez.
Jim McGuinn, 412 Chimney Rock. I'm glad that, as of today, the classrooms are dry. That was the ultimate goal, to get a safe and healthy environment for these kids as soon as possible. I went to a meeting of the PTO at Quidnessa back in March, and I just, like the other people in the room, noticed the superintendent was sitting there, panels removed over his head, and a 12-by-12 tarp behind him. That's not a normal environment for an elementary school. My daughter went there. When she went there, I don't remember a stain on the ceiling. The roof, I found out later, was replaced in 2002. It's got a warranty until 2017. Mr. Mudge and I went in the building the next day to take pictures. I told him about it. We were allowed in the building by the staff. I've been, Mrs. Dannette was there when my daughter was there. We've been very friendly. I've been very, helpful, anything I could do to that school. It's my community school. We let it and walked in, and they said, sure. We took pictures. The next day, Mrs. Dannette, when we talked to her, she looked like a frightened bird, frankly, and she told no one was allowed in the school without the superintendent's prior authority, written authority or prior authority. I found, I didn't realize the roof had a warranty at the time. It does have a warranty. I didn't realize that it had twice as many school department roof leak work orders in the past 2.5 years per square foot as the Davisville Middle School roof, which needed to be replaced, but twice as many per square foot. I didn't realize that there were significant leaks in virtually every month except for 3 in the past 2 years, and it was getting more pervasive. I didn't realize that there had been a mold test, and they didn't get it until quite later. I asked for it, I had to do an APRA mold test that said that the mold level was 21.6 times the max in a second grade school classroom. And this, they specifically said, Aspergillus has health issues that may be long-term, and these are very high. This is a serious health risk. I didn't realize, there isn't a bathroom or sink in that room. I didn't realize until I did an APRA that there were work orders to the contract manufacturer. The report for that mold came out on August 11th, 2011. 4 days later, the contractor was called in, I don't see a contractor called in for wicking up from the floor, but called in to address various leaks throughout the building. Then on 9/9, just a couple weeks later, that was 4 days after the mold report. Okay? Very high levels in that classroom. The leak is in, one of the bad leaks is in that classroom. 2 weeks later, another call to the contract manufacturer to check for the leaks, various leaks. A week after that, another. And virtually almost every month since then, the contractor's been up there. What I did on March 22 was, I didn't blame anybody. I asked for the town as the bonding authority, and because the school didn't have a lot of money, and because the town engineer was doing an infrared study on the DMS roof, and it was about $2,000, to please pay for a roof leak infrared for that roof. That now is helping the contractor and the manufacturer figure out where to address the leaks. It's identified them. I'm glad, and I did write to the Commissioner of Education and in the Town Council, and I said, if you can't fix that roof, those kids should not be in that building. We've got an empty school. Move them there until you can fix the roof. And I also asked that if it needed bond money, that they put in enabling legislation to get the bond money so that roof could be fixed. This is health and safety of children. It's not personalities, and this is, I'm the taxpayers organization. I'm asking for more money. That's a weird concept, maybe, to some of you, but I'm asking, get the money, make sure these kids are safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After Mr. Iniguez is John Piazza.
How you doing? My name is Jose Iniguez, 20 Edmond Drive. I have 3 little girls, 8, 6, and 5. 2 of them are currently in school right now at Quidnessa. One of them will be there next year. I am a very concerned parent, as long as I hear all these things from their teachers that spoke today, from other parents, and I get the sense from the committee that, yes, we are trying to do everything possible, but the sense from the parents, the concerned parents, the teachers, the employees of that school, it's not the same, you know, and that very much concerns me as I have conversations with my little girl who is in second grade and a kindergarten, and I ask them about these water leaks. I get it directly from them. I don't need to see the pictures that have been taken. I believe my little girls, and when they ask me why don't they fix it, shouldn't you be able to fix it quickly? I don't have an answer, because my answer is an obvious one. I see things very basic. Yes, they should be able to fix that quickly. And when we talk about, do we have the budget or do we go after the bond to try to fix this roof, we don't have a whole lot of time. And from my understanding, to go after the bond, the session's practically over now. We would have to wait for the next year. And we can't go another year with this lingering. So that's a big concern to me. Doctor, you mentioned that there's no other group more concerned than this group, and I disagree. The parents are very, very concerned. I'm a very, very concerned parent, and I'm a little bit gun-shy in saying that I don't have the confidence in this committee only because of the history of what it is that we're talking about. But I'm hoping that today you guys prove me wrong and do something about this very fast. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Piazza, and then Kelly Piazza.
John Piazza of Edmond Drive, 25 Edmond Drive. I want to thank you for taking the time to put this on the agenda. We appreciate it. And as a parent of two kids in that elementary school, one of which is in Mrs. Wilson's class, don't have a lot to say to this subject right now because I'm fairly new to it. To say over the last probably 2 days is when I found out a lot of the information, seeing a news report on TV. But I don't have a lot to say yet, and I will be following it. I'll be following everybody's actions and your support, and I hope that that continues. And I will be encouraging other parents to do the same. I'm a bit surprised that we don't see more parents here. And just like Jose said, who's a neighbor of mine, I can't agree with him more. As much as you say all the people here want that solved and there's nobody more, I wish you would rethink that, and I think you will in the future now, to say that my daughter is in that class, and unless your child is sitting next to her, you can't want it any more than me.
I understand your point.
All right, I appreciate that. And I also have to say the first speaker kind of opened my eyes. I've looked at the school committee. I don't get that involved to come to the meetings, but I do hope you folks can take your differences and put them aside. Do like adults. There's children here at risk. I'll be very surprised if there isn't a mold issue. I don't want this to be a legacy for my children, that I have to come back in the future and worry that that's where this all started. So please, folks, work together for this issue. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kelly Piazza, 25 Edmond Drive. These are my two children. They both go to Quidnessa. My daughter here is in Mrs. Wilson's class that has been affected with a lot of these changes. And I'm very happy to hear that some of these issues have been resolved with the roof situation. She actually is very verbal, comes home and tells me all the things that have dripped and where and when and how long before I got the note home from school. And my biggest issue here right now, because I've learned a lot of new things over the past few days, and I learned some by listening to you, Mr. Auger, tonight, that things have gone on to help to improve the situation. My issue is that we haven't heard about it. We haven't heard about it as families. We haven't heard about it as apparently staff. And you used us to get your bond passed. You used the system, the school system, calling system, and the email system to get that information out about the bond. But you're not using anything, any communicative system, to get the information out that parents and staff need to know about the environment that we have to send our children to every single day. Not because of any other reason, but we're mandated to send them there. They need to go to a safe environment. I have heard and I've seen the reports about the mold issue that happened in August. You're claiming that there has been other reports done. We haven't seen them. I would like to know that in the future, that instead of hiding things from parents and staff and people who are involved, that you will communicate with us, because then maybe we won't be here in this situation, sitting here asking for help, because it will already be readily available. I hope that you can look at my children, who both of which this year have had a long-term cough with oxygen levels below normal. Was it because of issues at that school? I don't know. But I also can't have the faith that it's not, because I was not given the information to make that determination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to speak who is not signed up? Come on up, Mrs. Costa.
Good evening, everybody. The reason why I'm here is last month I went to the Quidnessa to read to the second graders, which I enjoy very, very much, and I look forward to doing that every year. It's a great group of students. And as I was reading, there was a bucket next to me, and there was blue tarps, and there was a whole bunch of stuff on the ceilings. And until I went into the school, seeing my kids were in their 20s, I had no idea. I literally had no idea until I saw it for myself. So it is an exaggerated area when it says that there are tarps, there are buckets, and I had to walk around 2 big garbage barrels to get to the second grade class. And I asked one of the teachers, I said, how long has this been going on? And she just kind of looked at me. She said, I really don't want to get myself in any kind of trouble. So I just left it at that. I wasn't going to go any further. I did hear a couple of parents out here also say, and as well as you folks here, that the legislation is almost, the session is almost finished. If you needed any legislation passed, especially town legislation, I am here. I can get it done. It's a town bill. The faster you get it to me, the faster I can get it to the House floor. We've had legislation put in as late as today. There was 3 bills put in. This has to be fixed. And, I mean, I'm sure none of you wouldn't agree with me on that. Also, I'm sorry that I wasn't here earlier. I was at the State House. I got here as quick as I can. Superintendent Oja, did you say that some of it has been fixed? I wasn't here, so...
Yes. We had, after the last episode last week, people from Sonneville came in and they did repairs over the second grade area. We have no reports of any dripping in the second grade area today.
Would it be possible for me to come and take a tour with you?
That would be okay.
Okay, great. Can I schedule that if I call your office tomorrow?
Sure.
Could we schedule something?
Okay.
Okay, I would really appreciate that. This way, we can actually see what's going on, and in case people would want to say otherwise, I'd have it for myself. And please, again, I was there a few weeks back when we had the unveiling of the beautiful mural that was painted on the wall. The kids are very talented. I was there with the governor, and I found it kind of odd.
That was Stony Lane.
Stony Lane, I'm sorry. Never mind, wrong school.
They look
But they
identical.
did great work. But I did find it kind of odd at Stony Lane that we had to walk around the building, too, so I was wondering if there was any problems at that school that I should know about.
That's because you were going into the gymnasium.
Right, I understand that, sir. Yep, just asking, make sure there's no problems. And again, if there's anything I can do on the state level, we still have time. We still have time to put a town bill in, and I'll be more than happy to work with any of you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, thank you very much. That's the end of citizens' comments. And we will go from citizens' comments to superintendent's report.
Thank you. Before I use my report to talk a little bit about the budget, I just want to thank those of you who came out tonight. I have taken some notes tonight. I have listened to you. I understand that you want better communication from me, and I am going to do that. As someone pointed out, I did, use department emails and listservs and things like that to contact people about the Davisville roof. That is the middle school your kids are going to. And I want them to go to a school that has a nice dry roof. That roof has been a problem for several years, long before I came on the scene as an administrator in this district. And I was doing everything I could, using every resource I could, to get that roof repaired. And fortunately, our efforts, the people in this room, a lot of you came out to vote for that, made it happen. And I appreciate that. It is with that same spirit that I'm going into this. I found out, I've been superintendent now for roughly 10 months or so, and this came to my attention as, the problem that it is probably about, February or March or so. So, there's still some work to do. Now, there have been reports posted for the faculty about mold levels and all that sort of thing. We have not had any mold due to rainwater. The mold issue that happened had to do with coming up through the floor. It was a separate issue altogether. And this has been 3 reports this year. The last report I have in front of me, this is now the April 17 report. The conclusion is there does not seem to be any fungal problem with the area surveyed at Quidnessa Elementary School at this time. So, as an administrator in the district, the best I can do is make sure of that and continually test it, and we have. And that's the results we're getting. I've just read to you right off the report. That is the conclusion of the report. So, until we have something more urgent than that to deal with, I will deal appropriately with what I have. And I'm doing everything we can with all of the groups that I talked to you about, particularly the facilities subcommittee, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later on tonight, about getting their help in, moving with this project, whether it's done on a warranty, whether it's done with extra bond money, whether it's done with just district money, fund balance, whatever it takes. I want it to get done. I want it to get done right. I want it to get done as quickly as we possibly can, this summer if we possibly can. To have a major roof project happening when kids are in the building, that doesn't make sense. So the short-term fixes that today were successful, we're going to have to use till the rest of the year. But we could probably do something more significant over the summer, and that's my goal. And I will do my best to make sure that I communicate that to everybody involved, including all of the parents. Now, one of the reasons that I didn't go to a great extent about that kind of communication is because I don't want to scare people. When I get a report back that things are safe, I'm fine with that. There have been faculty members that have asked for it, and we have posted that in the principal's office, the front office at the school. What my worry was, and I'll just be honest with you, is as soon as you send an email out to a school of parents to say there is no problem about mold, well, guess what? There is now, because people feel you're trying to hide something. I'm not trying to hide anything. There is not a problem with mold as far as what I'm learning from these reports, and they know a lot better than I do. So we're watching this very closely, and we're going to do everything we can to fix it as soon as we can. I promise you that. I'd like to turn the page right now and talk a little bit about the budget. I'm not going to go into great detail because I went into great detail last time. As you know, we were looking at a number of about $2.7 million in cuts that we need to make to get to a balanced budget. And it is my feeling that with the state aid expectation and with the results, what will be finalized after we go through arbitration with ESP, that we will be able to realize approximately $1.6 million of that. The remainder of that are, certainly some painful cuts, and but they're not, to the extent of going as far as what we had in a red area last time, where it gets really significant and trying to make up that $1.6 million in other ways. There are a couple of adjustments from last time. The most notable and best adjustment that I can tell you about is that we've actually learned that the money that we're expecting for an increase from Blue Cross was actually not as significant as we thought. We thought it would be a 9.2% increase. It came out to be a 7.2%. That was $120,000 to the good. And so there were some things on my original green list that you may have seen last time that I have put back, most notably a 6th grade teacher at Davisville Middle School and some sections of high school electives that we were having a particularly difficult time in working out. The other piece that I want to talk about is there's still about $15,000 in cuts to the arts. Those are put together in such a way that I feel are in the best way that fundraising efforts could manage to make up the funds, and not necessarily connected to people where a person's job is on the line, but to supplies and those kinds of things where fundraising events may be able to bring that stuff back. The other piece is with sports. There's approximately $45,000 between freshman sports and, as it turns out, hockey and gymnastics. Earlier, the number for that included more teams. As it turned out, we redid the math on that one, and it turned out that those two teams alone take up that $30,000 number that we were looking for. So that's why those are left. And those are chosen not because I like or hate any particular sport or anything like that. Those are a basic ratio of the cost of the sport and the participants playing. And that's how those two came out. And we had to pick a boys and a girls team to stay equitable with Title IX. I hope that we're going to run those sports next year. But it is my hope to do so with private funds. I've already spoken with Mr. Marble of the Booster Club. I plan to attend his meeting next week and to talk with them about partnering with the district in somehow working toward raising private funds to run those sports and to be a consistent year by year conduit for us to help us with private funding for sports. The ad that I have of $37,000 to hire a part-time business partnerships coordinator could play into that. I need someone to aggressively go out there working with private companies to advertise in our sports areas and anywhere in the school to raise money for these kinds of things. That will help to take the pressure off of us this year and in future years. So it is my hope that we're going to run a full arts program and we're going to run a full sports program. But, there's still some of that to be worked out, and I'll be reporting on that in the next few weeks. But for now, I believe, these cuts need to happen, and it is my hope and my expectation that we will do those kinds of things through private funding. That is the extent of my report on the budget, and that's going to be coming up on the agenda
Can I
a
make
little
a
later.
comment, Dr.
Hold on.
O'Shea, please?
Hold on. What we're going to do is I know that everybody has questions. I saw Mr. Cerisi's hand up first, and so we will merely go down, and each person will have an opportunity to ask questions. So, Mr. Cerisi, since I saw your hand up earlier, I will go to you first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick comments. One regarding the concerns raised with the roof at Quidnessa Elementary School. I agree with Dr. Roger in his concerns to not create a panic or initially not to create a panic. However, at this point, I think a lot of misinformation has been spread around the community, and I don't think it's in a malicious way or that's the intent to spread misinformation. It kind of goes to that when a story originates with one person, by the time it gets to the 20th person, it's a whole different story. So I think at this point, I initially agree with your assessment, Dr. Roger, and not sending out information and not wanting to create a panic. But I think at this point, I think it would serve the district in the community if we do send out some type of communication. And I'll obviously leave that up to you as the leader of the school district, maybe something on the district's website, maybe post the results of those recent reports on the website, or maybe send the results, copies of those reports out on the listserv. Just something along those lines. And I would agree with your initial steps and your initial concerns. But like I said, at this point, I think we have some obvious concerns, and they're legitimate concerns, and then we also have the misinformation part. So I think it's wise at this point to make sure we open the lines of communication and send out that information to hopefully address any questions or concerns that are out there. Secondly, on the budgetary, which I'm going to reserve my comments for when we reach that agenda item, but I do have a concern, and that's something that I think the administration should work closely with on with legal counsel when we start having private funds fully funding teams and so on and so forth. I'm very grateful for the offer, and hopefully all this can be done. I fully support it. But again, I just want to be cautious that we don't run afoul of the pay for play and Title IX and all that other good stuff. So I would ask that if we do move ahead with that, which I think it's a great idea, that we work closely with legal counsel to make sure that we don't put ourselves in any predicament of running afoul of those laws and regulations that exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, and then Mrs. Avanzato, and then Mr. Mudge.
Thank you, Kim. Just brief comment on the Quidnessa Elementary roof. You know, when my son was in Stony Lane, there was a series of roofing issues, and they evacuated the school no less than like 4 times, and the kids were taken out, and there was dust raining down. We found out later asbestos had been removed, and the parents weren't told. It was a nightmare, so I know exactly how you parents are feeling about this. One thing that may seem probably very obvious to people that know something about roofing, but something that I learned during that time, and I guess it's obvious to a lot of people that know, but I didn't realize that you cannot really do extensive repair or replacement, and you shouldn't, with the students in the school. You have to do patchwork. That's the problem, is because if you're using a chemical to glue it, which is what the case was in Stony Lane, and you've got children coming in the next day, it doesn't matter that they're not there when the work's not happening. If you do the work at night, it's still a danger to them during the day. So just to clarify why we're not going in with a major project right now to address what you're talking about and fix it completely this minute, it really can't be done on that scale until the summer. It has to be patched, or at least this is my rough understanding from meetings I've gone to with people that know, the facilities management subcommittee that we use. And I just wanted to let parents know that that's one of the reasons why we can't go in there and address it right now immediately and just do it. I will also say that there was a distinct lack of support among some people for our first bond. You know, I mean, we want to see all these roofs fixed. You know, we need support. The school committee needs some support. When we put a bond out, we're doing the best we can to keep it lean and to do right by the taxpayers as well as the students. But, you know, we can't cherry pick. We need to do all these things, and we need community behind us. We can't just do it by ourselves because, you know, we can come out and get those bonds defeated very easily. So I would encourage parents that are getting involved, because that's when I first got involved, is when the whole Stony Lane affair happened when my son was in school. So those are my comments for right now. I'll reserve comments on the budget for later.
Thank you. Mr. Mudge?
Yeah, I kind of look at this a little bit differently, obviously, the roof at Quidnessa, because I think what we heard today was the rest of the story. We heard the rest of the story from the parents. This wasn't a one-day problem. This problem's been going on for years, and it's a slow process that we went through, and we probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Davisville Middle School, obviously, because Davisville Middle School, we had a problem, we wanted to get the roof on, nobody questioned to get any roof on there, and as a result of that, the superintendent goes over to Quidnessa, and all of a sudden they're looking at the tapes and everybody else. Then what you do, you start to peel the onion. You go back and peel the onion, and you look at the work requests that have been and put in the process and the complaints for the last 3 years. I don't have to tell you about that. You heard that from the parents. So you say, what's been going on? But it's taken this attention, and thank goodness Mr. McGuinn did the research he did, because he's the one that contacted Sonnenfeld and ultimately got him down here. We found out we had, by the way, we were going up for 2 years and making repairs on that roof. We never even contacted the manufacturer, the roof manufacturer. So the whole thing has been handled at best sloppily. Okay? I don't know if that's a good word or not. But that's some of the problems we've had here, and the parents should be darn concerned about that. And we have, for example, the lack of information. We took a test, for example, at Davisville Middle School in January when we were seeking the bond, and I supported the roof project, okay? We took a test over there. They found no mold. Just the opposite. Found no mold also. But yet, that was still a safety problem. That was still a health problem. But we had a test last January when we were doing it, said no mold. But that wasn't presented to the public, was it? So the public has a true right, and the citizens and the parents are being skeptical about what's happening, okay? And I'd like to find out what misinformation has been floating around, because I'd like to attack any misinformation myself. Now, follow up on the budget, one quick one. Why in God's name are we trying to cut $2.7 million? We sent a $58,737,000 budget to the town of North Kingstown, okay? They approved $57,243,000. That's $1.5 million we need in cuts, if you have to make them, which we don't, because we're going to get $624,000 more from the state. Probably they're going to throw in an extra $100K, I'll bet, because of the situation, okay? And we have $1 million in reserve. But, you know, we in this committee haven't said to the council and to the folks out here, we already made $1.4 million worth of cuts to the budget you're talking about last February 7th, okay? We made $1.4 million worth of cuts, and they're right here, okay? Line by line by line. So we went to the council, and the council in good faith, okay? They held up $624,000 because they didn't know about state aid. They recognize we have, obviously, revenue coming in. We have, by the way, when we get to the budget, when we talked about the $1.4 million that got us down to the number that we went to the town council with, the $58 million, that didn't include any breakage. Breakage is about $350,000. Medicaid, excuse me, not Medicaid. Now we have $120,000 more from Blue Cross.
Mr. Mudge,
Okay.
your time is up, so you haven't asked any questions, and so unless you have like one more thing to say.
Okay, my question is, why do we have $2.7 million of cuts on the table?
I can answer that. You know, you're right. We did approve $1.4 million in cuts. That was a proposal to the town council.
Town council? How could that be a proposal?
Excuse me. Can I answer your question?
Mr. Mudge, let Dr. O'Shea answer the question.
It was our budget proposal. It came back very different, obviously. As you said, 57,243. We asked for approximately 1.5 million more than that. Okay, so we're at a point right now that was several months ago, and now we are at the point of we're facing the new year, and we have to fine tune this. And a lot of the cuts in green are similar to the ones that we did. So this is kind of an update. There's also a section before that where there are a number of adjustments that need to be made since February 7th when we made that initial proposal. So, that's the difference, and I think you know that. I don't think you need to ask me that question.
Well, I think the committee has to know.
I think the committee does know that.
1.6 million.
I think it's very clear to the committee.
I don't think it is.
Anything else that you wanted to comment on? You at one point asked me if you could comment, so I said at the end.
I'm fine.
Mrs. Benson.
Thank you, Mrs. Page, for giving me an opportunity to speak. To all of the parents, and I especially want to thank our representative from our district for being here. And she's absolutely right. But to get more money for the school budget, we can sign a petition here in town and get it. But what I want to speak about is what some of you spoke about, and that is the assimilation of information. I received a sum of 17 calls this morning Each person, I directed them to the superintendent's office and said, give me your telephone number and your name so I would know that it was a legitimate person. You have sat here, you see how speech is suppressed when some members want to speak. You can see that yourself. Nobody has to tell you. And this, you got 2 minutes, 1 minute. When you ran for office, you did not put on your literature, if you come to school committee meeting, you can't speak for 2 minutes. And I will not recognize you. That wasn't on any literature. I've been in public office for over 20 years. And I know that it has to be an exchange between people. If you watch the General Assembly, you see there is an exchange every day. We're not all made from the same mold, but you come to consensus. But you do not stifle participation. That cannot be stifled. So I hope you have observed, and to the gentleman that said, you see in the paper 3 names, I didn't know the letter was going in the paper till I read it, just like you. Because if you don't stand up and give 5 salutes to Dixie because you're waiting on the national anthem, you don't get recognized. And the national anthem is what you stand up and put your heart to, not Dixie. So, thank you for coming. And I will be with you. Didn't give out any information, but if you had any way that you needed to know what to contact, if I have it, I gave it to them. But that's all I want to say. And your children is all that you have. That's all you got. That's the most precious possession you can have. And for somebody to use the term expensive. What happened to all the money for repairs that's been in the budgets and from year to year? Let's use some of that and get it. I've never seen people in North Kingstown that didn't cooperate and supply the schools. I've worked here 28 years. People are ready and willing to supply the schools. But just look, what I'm saying is not important. What I'm saying is not important. And just observe, and I'm glad you're here and you can see it for yourself. And come back anytime, because you're the ones that's paying the bill. And thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Benson. Mr. Welch.
Thank you. I'd like to say that I share the concern of everyone that spoke this evening about our problems at Quidnessa. I would also like to say that I attended the meeting of the PTO at Quidnessa School with 2 members of the Facilities Committee when we talked to them about the pending bond issue. I'll tell you that not one mention was made by a parent, by the principal, by any of the teachers at that meeting about anything to do with any water problems in that school. Not one person said anything. I've been on this committee for 3.5 years. My phone number and my email address is listed on the school's website. I have not received, up until this point in time, any communication from anyone. It leads you to question why all of a sudden this has come up. It leads me to question that. To think that we have responded in some fashion, according to Mr. McGuinn, 42 times in the last 2 years to that school means that we have been paying attention to it.
Yes, we have not been successful, and that concerns me, but nonetheless, it will be straightened out. It doesn't require additional bond issue. We told you, it's under warranty. It will be fixed. Ask the question that I just said to you. Why was this information not communicated to me or the other members of this school committee if it's been ongoing for so long? Why did the principal, who I've met with several times, never, ever say anything? And then ask why we should be held accountable for something not being fixed when it's not being communicated. But our staff has addressed it. It just hasn't resolved the entire issue. All of the buildings in the school department were reviewed by the architect and engineer when we presented our Phase 2 program to do improvements to all of the buildings. They reviewed the roofs at all of the schools. There was no mention in their report at all of a problem at Quidnessa Elementary School. It would have been included in the bond issue had it been mentioned. There's not a neglect on our part. We will do our level best to make sure that not only the buildings, but the children and the staff will be protected. I think that's the message that Dr. Roger told you all tonight. When we get to the budget, I have a motion to make. Thank you.
Mr. Buskirden.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Shortly after the PTO meeting was held and the pictures were taken, I stopped in on the way home from work, and after talking with Dr. Auger, I was allowed to go and look at the school. And I did witness the missing tile, the tarps fashioned as funnels into garbage pails, and spoke with the principal, and she was kind enough to show me around, and she spent probably 15, 20 minutes with me showing me the school in general and specific issues that were on hand at that particular time. It was a surprise to me. I didn't expect to see what I saw. That being said, I'm just a little bit confused, because it seemed one part of it says that this has been ongoing. These leaks have been going on for a while, yet we've never been informed, and I can verify that. I've never, until the March PTO meeting, I didn't know there was an issue to this extent. And I do agree with Mr. Cerisi that every time the roof leaks, for a message to be sent out is kind of, at some point becomes counterproductive. It becomes the boy who cried wolf. Okay, here's another email, we have another roof leak. However, going forward, I think to make sure that we are being totally transparent, to make sure nobody thinks or feels that something's not being conveyed or something's being hidden, that every action that we take going forward needs to be communicated to you folks at Quidnessa. For us not to, I think, would be remiss and be almost a dereliction of our duty. That you need to be informed of every step of the way, what has been done, what has worked, what's going to be done, and a timeline if that's possible. So, I think that we need to do that for my sake, just so I'm part of that information process, and for, more importantly, for the parents and the teachers and the employees at Quidnessa. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that it had to come to this, quite frankly. I'm very new up here, so maybe the embarrassment is a function of my being new. But I will do whatever I can to make sure that my suggestions are heard, and I'm sure Dr. Auger is, I find him to be a very good listener and take suggestions well. And I'm sure that he will, in the future, provide you the information
as it becomes available. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buskardin. The only thing I guess I think I have to add is that I don't wish to point any fingers as to what has been done and what needs to be done. I think that the amount of people who came up here has been something that we have listened to you, and because of the number of people, it's obvious that we need to improve our communication on this. Whereas we can say that we thought we did communication well, the fact is that obviously some people have not received the message that we had hoped, that we are trying to resolve this problem. The number of people who have come here and stated that they are concerned for the children, we are concerned too. We will make sure that we get the communication better. So I thank everyone who came out here tonight, and we will continue to make sure that the community is appraised of what is going on, and also the committee. So that moves us into our routine.
Please. I would
No,
like to
we've all
support.
had our comments, Mr.
I'd like to
Mudge.
support what Mr. Welch said.
No, we've
It's
all
that
had our
we-
comments.
we didn't
We've
know the
all had our
problem.
comments, Mr. Mudge, and so now it's time. I gave everyone
So much for communications.
time to comment on this section, and so now we're going to move on. The next item we have is routine business, and we have executive session. Ms. Berglund, do you have any
Just one vote. Motion was made by Dick Welch to adjourn executive session and go into open, seconded by Linda Avanzato. The motion passed unanimously. And we want to seal the minutes.
Need a motion to seal?
Yes, I need a motion to seal the minutes of May 22nd, 2012.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
Abstain.
Thank you.
I'll have to abstain, which you noted in the minutes that I
Yes.
didn't attend the
So
executive
noted.
session. Please note it in the minutes.
Mrs. Benson, thank you.
I make a motion.
It is so noted. We don't need to make a motion,
I
but
didn't
thank
hear your
you.
motion.
We don't
We
need to
noted.
have a motion.
I have it.
All right, we're moving on to consent agenda. What needs to be exempted?
Nothing from me. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Mr. Cerisi.
I,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I have one exemption. It's D1, D as in dog, 1.
I have D3, please.
And I'll offer a new motion at this time to approve the non-exempted consent agenda items.
Second.
There are no further exemptions.
All right, there's a motion on the table and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, so that brings us to item number D1, Mr. Cerisi.
D1 is the approval of appointment of sports camp director funded by the enterprise fund fees. We have this discussion, I think, every spring when the sports camp comes together, and to my knowledge, it's still a floating issue that's never been definitively resolved. I know the funding for these positions comes from the tuition that's paid by the children that attend the sports camps. I know the sports camps are held on the facilities, the school facilities are used to hold the sports camps. I guess my question is, who's responsible for appointing the director? Who's responsible for setting the director's salary? Whose responsibility is that? I guess I would ask Dr. Roger or our business director.
Do you want to try it? I mean, I'm just going by history, Mr. Cerisi. I mean, I have this in front of us as an action that we are to appoint the director and to, initiate this person's salary. So I'm assuming it is us. Until this year, it isn't really something that I thought about all that much when I was assistant
I
superintendent.
know, and again, I know both of you, I apologize for putting both of you on the spot, and I did mean to have this conversation with you earlier, and I didn't have the opportunity to, so that's my fault, and I know both of you are new to this discussion. I know Attorney Carroll is not new to this discussion, and I know my fellow committee members are not new to this discussion. And it just remains an ongoing, outstanding, unresolved issue. Who's appointing the camp director? Who's setting the salary? Or who's recommending the salary? A year and a half ago, the salary was $6,000 for the camp director. This year, it's $7,200. This is for, again, it's my issue is if we're concerned about holding these camps to provide services and activities to children and using them to generate a revenue or an enterprise fund to help fund or help offset the cost of sports and activities, and we have people that have given their time, and I don't want to say given their time, we're paying somebody $7,200 to work 5 days a week for less than 6 weeks to direct a camp. You know what? Maybe if we didn't draw that $7,200 salary out of the tuition that's paid to these sports camps, there'd be $7,200 more for programs or for student activities and for athletics. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that somebody volunteer their time for free. God forbid that happens in this day and age. I know those days are long gone. Unfortunately. But I'm not going to vote for this. Again, it's an issue that keeps coming up every year. Every year we talk about who's responsible for the insurance, who's responsible for appointing these positions, who's responsible for setting these salaries. It's just a pass-through the school budget. That's basically all it is. And my understanding is it shouldn't even be in front of us. We should either have nothing to do with this or we should have total oversight of this, and we don't. It's basically we're rubber stamping it.
Yeah, if I could make a suggestion, when you deal with enterprise funds like this, I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure to what extent we should be dealing with this if it's an enterprise fund and there's money donated to the district to help our teams. So there is money that we desperately need for our teams that comes out of this, which is certainly helpful. And it is run on our property, so it is a partnership between the district and, this service that, Mr. Thomas has been running. This is the same salary he was approved for last year, and it is 9 weeks that the entire program comes from. And I would imagine there's some, initial getting ready for the camp as well that he's responsible for. It's probably at least 3 or 4 weeks. I would imagine he's even gearing up for it as we speak. So, it may go a good 12 weeks all in. I look at this and know that there is money coming to our teams, coming from the revenue from this camp. So, I see it as a good thing. I do feel it is worth my looking into as superintendent in preparation for next year to say, okay, what is the proper procedure here? Is this something that we need to approve the director, or do we just have to come to some kind of agreement that this is how the camp will run, and whatever the director does and how they do it is completely up to them, and we just need to be in agreement that, okay, we're going to allow certain things to happen on our property, and there'll be agreements about insurance for that, and then, is there going to be revenue coming to the district from it, and so I'd like to explore some more of that. I just haven't had an opportunity to do that, in preparation for this year. I was a little surprised that it was an issue for some people, to tell you the truth, a couple of weeks ago. So,
it's been talked about in previous years,
yeah.
and no fault of yours, Dr. Roger. I know this is your first go-around with this topic, but like I said, every year we have this same identical conversation. You can roll the tape back and play the last 5 years of tape, and it's the same conversation. And every year, we vote to approve it, and we're right back to where we are this year. We'll be there again next year. Until the committee stops voting to approve this, it's not going to get fixed. And again, I'm not questioning someone's ethics or someone's commitment or somebody's volunteer work or somebody's intentions or the great opportunities the programs provide. That's not the question here. The question is how we account for and how we administer this program.
Well,
It's a long outstanding issue that hasn't been cleaned up, so I'm not going to...
I would recommend that we table it and give me the 2 weeks to look into this some more and come back with
I'll
a
offer a motion.
recommendation that's more amenable.
I'll offer a motion to table it at this time until we can revisit this topic with some more information.
I'd second that.
All right, all those in favor?
How about some discussion?
Oh. Well, we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second, so any discussion has to be on the motion on the floor,
Why
which
is
is to
that?
table,
Why is that?
because that is parliamentary procedure.
You don't have to go right into, okay.
Mrs. Avanzato?
In terms of,
In-
the night or the new one you used about
In-
2 months ago.
In terms of tabling this motion, I would ask that, the question that I have, I don't have any doubt about who's in charge of these things. When someone uses school facilities, it's the school committee who's in charge, and the money comes into the general fund, and we decide where it goes. That's how it should work. I know it doesn't work that way. Maybe it doesn't work that way in every district, but I don't understand how it could work any other way if they're using school facilities and using the insurance of the school department. I would just ask that we maybe, again, I asked you this before, Marianne, let's talk to a couple of other districts and see what are they paying their sports camps directors, and how do they do this?
Well,
And if we could have that answer by the time we come back in front of the committee.
Right, but if you remember, last year or the year before, this comes up every year, Mr. Cerisi's right, we discussed every year, we took all the coaches off, because if we said we weren't going to be responsible for who coached under the enterprise fund for the sports camps, because we don't oversee the program. We took that off a long time ago,
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
but that begs the question about what Mr.
Mrs.
Cerisi said.
Okay, hold on.
Okay? It begs the question because,
This is merely to talk about tabling the motion.
well, Mrs. Almazzano just got to speak. May I speak, please?
And she talked about tabling the motion, so I want to make sure that that is what your comment is on.
You know, the only thing that bothers me about tabling the motion is this going to prevent this thing from getting organized and everything else? I really go along with the concept of what we have to do here, okay? But I'd hate to hurt the program.
I don't want to hurt the
Okay?
program either. I agree.
But with that said, there's been some misinformation here tonight, okay? First of all, if it's a enterprise fund, we're responsible, period. Fiduciary responsibilities, everything lie with us, period. We don't have anybody, even a liaison to this committee, and we don't know what the goals, objectives are, and all the other good stuff. And I think they do a great job. I also feel, okay, that you've raised an issue that I don't believe other school districts in the state of Rhode Island have. The sports camps run under school committees. Not the school committee. That's the key. Because once it's school committee, you say, is this a function of the school committee? And now we get into all kinds of issues, okay, which I had not said before. Number two, Mr. Cerisi said it again. There is no record of money that's come into our athletic program through the summer camp. Where is that? And in fact, you'll see that the summer camps have $40,000 this year in surplus from last year. And that money could be used to support athletics. $40,000 reserved from last year. Okay? So I totally agree with Mr. Cerisi. Got to put a handle on that thing and solve it for once and for all. Okay? And I would hate
Mrs. Benson, and
to support this thing, to hold up the camp, because I don't think it's going to do any good, okay? But I would make a motion, another motion.
there's a motion on the floor.
Okay. That we need to get a report how this has to be run, its compliance with federal law, the town, what am I trying to say? Enterprise funds and so forth and so on. It's lingered too long.
Mrs. Benson.
Mr. Cerisi is absolutely right. We've been talking about this for at least 6 years. And don't be surprised, Larry, you were there when you were in the audience, when you were a person. Just coming to the meeting like these people. you were there and heard this. Now, while we are at it, let's look at the summer academic program. Because the children who go to summer school, there are many ways, and the fees is too high for some parents. And I have personally paid tuition for 3 different children. And then in September, Dr. O.J., this should be interesting for you, I get a check from the school department, and I say, what's this for? Well, kids in Title I don't have to pay the whole fee. So in our next agenda, if we're talking about summer school also, I think our attorney should chip up on that too, because the kids that need summer school, the parents can't pay. But if they free lunch, that's what I got the money returned from, free lunch. Why can't we do something about that in the beginning? And I ask that when you're looking into this, take that into consideration also, if that's not too much. Don't kill the messenger, but take the message in consideration.
Can we move the question?
Yes.
Question
yes,
is-
I have the floor, Mrs. Benson. And the only reason I am a little bit concerned about tabling this is that we have already tabled this once. All the advertisements are out for summer camps, and we have been gathering submissions for camps. There are means to be able to ask for a scholarship for camps. We are hiring our people, and every fall we receive a report on how the money is divided up into each. Is like the football camp gets the money to football, the tennis camp gets the money to tennis, the soccer camp gets the money to soccer. So we receive that report every year, and everything truly does go where it's supposed to be. So I just caution the committee that if we're going to table it this time, we need to make sure that we really do get to this and all questions are asked, that we don't hold this up any longer, or we jeopardize a program that is very important. So my minute is up, so let's get into all the question.
How do we get the money? There's no evidence that we get money.
Yes, there is. There's a report we are given every year.
It does not come through our budget.
You're right, it's an enterprise fund.
But the enterprise fund, it must be coming to the school department through the enterprise fund.
Vote, please?
There's no transfers recorded.
Linda Avanzato, to table.
Yes.
To table.
Melvoy, to table. Melvoy Benson.
What is the motion?
To table the motion, the item.
Table this.
Oh, table the item, and I'll have an amendment to all.
No, there's no amendment. You're either yes or no on tabling the
I
motion.
said table the item, and
So you're voting yes to table. John
and I have
Viscardi.
amendment.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
Yeah.
Kimberly Page.
No.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Okay, we come to item D3. No, we're going to D3. Mr. Mudge? No. The motion has
The reason
passed.
for rejecting me.
The motion has passed. There is nothing to amend. We're on to D3.
motion.
Mr. Mudge,
Well, could I
you
make
made
another
a...
motion?
No, right now we're on D3. Mr. Mudge, you asked to exempt transfer certified staff budgeted.
Yes, I did. Don't know this particular lady, I don't think. And it says transfer. Transfer this young lady from one full-time special ed director to dean of students.
That's right.
What's this dean of students? It's in the
Students is a
transfer.
job we have at the high school. We've had it there for over a year now.
Well, it
Mr. Mudge.
seems like this is a promotion, isn't it?
It's a transfer in that there's another teacher who has been the dean who is going back to the teaching ranks, Brian McDonald. My point in calling it a transfer is that there are no additional dollars involved.
Well, it's a dean of students is a kind of a higher level above a teacher.
But the dean's going back down, the one that's in there.
Well, I understand, but
Okay,
my
well,
point
you know,
is...
your point is... Okay.
Shouldn't we be advised, maybe there's some other candidates that maybe would be eligible or want to be dean of students or whatever?
Mr. Mudge, we've gone over this a number of times. There are certain positions, like the head football coach, that you ask to see a whole bunch of candidates, but there are a whole bunch of other areas where you have never asked to see a bunch of candidates. We have a system in our district, like in all districts, where administrative staff are involved in putting names before the school committee after a search process. This is what we have done in this case, like all the others. So I don't see why we would have to put several names in front of the committee.
Could you explain
We
what
don't do
the
that with
process
other
was?
jobs.
Mr. Cerisi.
Dr. Ogier's clarification has addressed my concerns. I'll make a motion to approve that agenda item.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Buscarden.
Yeah, Dr. Ogier, I just have a question. Just to clarify for me.
Sure.
So Rebecca Carter is going to be the new Dean of Students at the specified salary and stipend.
Yes.
So is that the same salary and stipend that the previous Dean of Students had? I mean, is that why it's a wash, basically, is what you said?
Not necessarily. The other, Mr. McDonald, who is vacating that position, is going back to the teaching ranks. So he takes his salary with him, but not the stipend. So the two, one goes from the teaching ranks to the dean's job, takes the stipend, the other one releases the stipend. It's really the stipend that's in play. But they're at different steps in their careers and all sort of things, so their actual salary is different.
But the salary that Rebecca Carter has now, this mentioned here in the budget, the 61,505, that's what she's currently making?
That's what she's going to next year.
That's what whether she's a teacher or not?
Step or wherever she is in their career.
Regardless of what position?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right, that's...
And in fact, we're not at this point with this action right now, but, with the person that we would, if this leaves a vacancy in the special education department, then filling that vacancy, say, with a step one teacher would probably result in some savings at a certain point. So...
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure.
One more question, please.
Mrs. Held, did you have your hand up? Oh, no. Mr. Mudge.
Just this position, Dean of Students, is that a requirement under the BEP?
Again, we've been down this road a million times. The BEP doesn't say thou shalt have a Dean of Students. But, there are provisions under having safe schools and under having discipline codes and all that sort of thing, and this is part of the process. This is approved by the school committee. You were on the school committee when we approved it.
Yeah, the first one, yeah.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. Mrs. Benson.
I just wanted to ask Dr. O'Day, since she's leaving special education, I was glad to see her getting the position because I thought it would be in the realms of being the Dean of Students to work with our special population. But you just mentioned that you would replace her with a step one teacher. Now, putting a step one teacher and replacing her with into our special population, what are we losing? The know-how from working with special kids? We all have to start teaching somewhere, but there's bound to be a loss if she's a seasoned special ed teacher. And I was happy when I saw this because I thought she would be working as Dean of Students, concentrating with special education, our special needs students. So it isn't and it is, because you say we're going to have time, that's a salary step. We can do nothing about that. But you mentioned that you were going to hire somebody with a step one. Do you think that that's best for our special population? Could you explain that?
What I said was basically that when if we have a vacancy, we look to hire. It has been the wish of this committee to instruct the previous superintendent and myself to look to hire at step one. And you were a part of that, Mrs. Benson.
I certainly was, and I didn't agree on
this person has some, obviously comes well regarded, otherwise she wouldn't be put forward for this position. Her skills in special education certainly would be helpful, in that regard. In the case of, the math teacher who's going back to his classes, he is a veteran teacher. That's a place where we will not have to have a Step 1 math teacher. So all of this is a wash. When, a veteran gets promoted or moves on, we hire a younger teacher. That's what happens.
All right, there is a motion on the floor. No, you've had your time, so we need to get on to the motion on the floor. And so the motion on the floor, and there is a second. Can we please take a roll call vote?
John Bascardin.
Yes.
Melvoy Benson.
No.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes?
William Mudge.
You vote no right now.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzado.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-2. Thank you.
That brings us to unfinished business. Dr. Ajay, did you have anything that you wanted to say about this year's school budget?
I don't have anything at this time.
All right, that brings us to item B, the
Excuse me.
school budget for
Timeline.
2012, 2013.
But,
and we have Dr. Ajay's...
Excuse me.
Yes, I see you. I'm
Agenda?
not No, I'm going always with the agenda is. Right now, Dr. Ajay has put on here the approval of the superintendent's recommended...
Excuse me, point of order. You're not following the agenda. A says 2011, 2012 budget.
Yes, and Dr. Ajay said that he had nothing to say about
Well,
that. So
I
I'm
have some
moving
things to say, please.
No, I'm not going to go, if there is no recommendation, there is nothing to vote on, and at this time, there won't be any comment
We're
on
going
nothing
to
we're going
court.
to vote on.
Do we have a deficit? Don't we have a deficit? Where do we stand today? Okay, I mean, we're talking about $700,000 or $1 million.
You were appraised of that during executive session as to what the litigation was about that, so at this time,
Oh,
we're
we're
not
going
going
to
to
court
comment on
tomorrow?
that.
The people should know
Correct.
that.
So
Okay.
we will be appraised of that after the litigation. So we are now on 2012,
Some other questions on the
2013.
2012 budget.
And this is, one, the approval of the superintendent's recommended budget reductions for FY13 as submitted as of 5/22/12. Mr. Welch, you have a note here that you have a motion on the budget.
Yes. Superintendent is going to propose, I gather, the green budget.
I'm proposing that we approve the expenditure changes in orange and the green, so everything on page 1.
Okay. My motion is to remove from the green items line number 49 and 52, and put back lines 35 and 36. 49 and 52, I don't have the things up. It's part of it is for an FTE for a para, and the other is for the person that's going to be a business, to go out and sell business ads. And those are new jobs. One is for $35,000 and one is for $37,678. Put back on the sports would be item line number 35, which is $15,000, and line number 36, which is $31,500. And that's for the sports that are in the green cuts, to put them back in until until we have the money to pay for 49 and 52. My motion is to pull them out and let them take the place of supporting both the sports issues that were being cut.
Is there a second on the motion?
I'd like to amend the motion.
There has to be a second on the motion.
I second the motion, and Mr. Welch, would you yield for a question when we get to the discussion?
So there is a motion on the floor, and Mrs. Benson has seconded. I'm going to first let Dr. Ajay comment, since this is his
Obviously, this is not something that I would recommend. I kind of wish I had known this was coming. But, I don't recommend that on the basis of the special education para. I would not have it there unless I felt it was actually required by law to have that. This is a special education situation, so I'm assuming and I know, because I've talked with Mrs. Santa about this, that this is required in someone's IEP. So that is something we are going to need to do one way or another, whether we do it tonight or not. And the business partnerships, part of the goal for that role, as I explained last time, is to bring in advertising dollars and revenue to support those numbers that you are looking to pull with the sports, numbers 35 and 36. So, you know, I certainly understand why you would want to put those things back, but I feel that our attempt at a business partnerships coordinator here is in the vein of bringing them back for now and bringing them back permanently and making long-lasting relationships that will bring in a steady stream of private money to do just that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and the second. I'll take comments from members of the committee. I'll give everyone about 1 minute. So Mrs. Avanzato, I see your hand.
Yeah, I don't have the sheet in front of me, but because I can't get it to open on my computer. So, but I know I've seen it. I know what's on there. But my point that I was going to make is I can't support this motion because I can't support cutting a special education paraprofessional that we need and leaving in freshman sports. You know, when you make millions of dollars worth of cuts, all areas have to be cut, and sports is one of those areas. You know, and I think that the discussions that Dr. Auger has had with the Boosters Club, I know that they have been part and parcel of putting together these recommendations as to what would hurt the athletic program the least. I mean, none of it is anything we want to do, but I just can't support cutting a special ed para that's needed by the district, that's required by law, and to add back freshman sports, which almost a lot of districts don't even have. And then the other item, taking away the person that we're going to, I'll make it brief, taking away the person that we're going to use for advertising, I think that's a very poor move long term. I think that's short-term money, and we're not looking towards the future. This person hopefully is going to be looking towards helping us supplement the athletic budget years to come. That's it. Thank you.
Mrs. Benson?
I would hope that you would stop and think that moving the special ed para, the federal government will make sure that you have one, and I think the Commission of Education, and you may look it up, anything you want, but she has stated on occasions that if you needed extra money for special needs, they would give it to you. I'll find some way for you to get it. Now,
I'm sorry, Mrs. Benson, go ahead.
Now, the special education para, if it is needed and parents complain, you stand a chance of losing all your school funding. I've had the attorney to tell me more times than one that our things is one of the committee's things. But ain't no committee got nothing to say when it comes to special ed. So they will get what they need. They will get what they need. And they will get it if I have to call to Washington, and I'm telling you in advance. I'm telling you in advance. Policy does not supersede what's needed for special education.
Thank you, Mr. Benson.
Number two, I know your bell's ringing.
Yes, you do.
Well, we're going to hear me tonight.
Well, I need you to speed it up, Mrs. Benson, so that everyone gets a time to talk. It is almost 9:15.
Number two, you didn't put that on your campaign literature, so I'm finishing.
Mr. Go ahead.
Number two, how do you expect to have any sports team when you don't have a feeder team for the varsity team? That's all I had to say, so you can ring your bell now.
Mr. Busgarden.
Thank you, Ms. Page. As far as the special ed paraprofessional person goes, I have to defer to Dr. Auger, and In fact, it's needed by law, then we have to have it, and that's really not up for discussion.
You're going to get it, honey.
The business partnership coordinator, I think that's pretty forward-thinking, and that if it is implemented and we get the right person, provided we get the right person in place, that could, as Ms. Amazano said, help support the sports for years to come. As far as the freshman sports go, that's a luxury. We have junior varsity here. We're not in a position to have a freshman sports program along with junior varsity. We have a feeder program with junior varsity. We have feeder programs with the club sports. There'll be plenty of kids to run to fill the athletic fields for years to come. Thank you.
Are you sure that junior varsity isn't made up?
Mr. Mudge and Mr. Cerisi.
Yes, there's freshman, junior varsity.
We're going through an exercise of futility here, and I don't know why we're doing it. I really, truly don't. We got $1.4 million of cuts we have to make. We've already made the following cuts, okay? Item 14 was reduced. If we go back to the 2000 February meeting. Item 14 was reduced, cut. Item 19, you might want to mark this up. Item 19, okay, was cut. Item 22, 23, 24, they've already been cut, okay? 29, 30, 31 have already been cut. 34 been reduced, been cut. 40, 42, 43, 48, and 50 have already been voted to be cut. You did it on your February 7th meeting. All you have to do is go and look at that. Okay? Now, there's been some other changes in here, and I'm surprised we haven't articulated this. But maybe I'm wrong. But regardless of that, it's premature to make any cuts tonight. We don't have to go through this and nickel-dime this thing. We know we're going to get $624,000 from the state. We're sitting on $1 million, and we have other opportunities that aren't even in this and haven't even been considered, and that is $400,000 of breakage is not figured into this number. Neither is the $120,000 from Medicaid. That's $490,000 right there. We haven't figured in the $70,000 of gate receipts money that should come back in here. We haven't figured in so many things, okay?
All right, Mr. Mudge, I need you to stick with the motion on the floor, and
I'm trying to explain why I'm not going to vote for the motion on the floor, and I'm not going to vote for anything at this time, because it's ludicrous to do it. We're going to come back and go through this thing.
Mr. Cerisi?
Please.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Madam Chair. The idea of transferring money from fund balance to offset or to cover recurring year-over-year operating costs is what they call creating a structural deficit.
So you did.
And that's why the state, the country, and the school department, the state and the country are in the mess that they're in right now, and the school department will follow in that mess if we're going to use one-time fixes to cover reoccurring year-over-year expenditures. The cuts need to be made at some point. We need to stop kicking the can down the road. I'm not enjoying making these cuts. I don't take great pride in making these cuts and so on and so forth. I'd love to see us be building things and not tearing things down, but unfortunately that's the economic climate we're in. That was a quick minute. I'm talking slow.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm realizing it. I don't think that we're all going over that.
I'm not going to support the motion that's on the floor. Given the superintendent's comments and recommendations, and I'll offer an amendment to that motion that's on the floor to approve the entire list of recommended cuts as proposed by the superintendent.
Second.
All right, so we have an amendment to the motion. Do we need any further discussion on that, or can we just vote on the amendment?
I got one comment on the amended motion.
Go ahead.
My comment on the amended motion is there is one item in this list, number 14, of proposed reductions that I am a little bit concerned about, that I am a little bit leery about. I know we have had prior discussions on them and presentations on this, and I'm going to be discussing this both offline with the administration and at school committee meetings in the future, and really, I would really like some updates and some reports on the progress of the implementation of this program. I know the outside agency that provides these services right now does an excellent job.
Thank you.
With this group of individual students. I know we're trying to match or even better the services offered by doing it in-house and reducing our cost and offering some savings. But in some situations, it's, you don't always get more bang for the buck or more bang for less of a buck, I guess. So this is something that I am a little bit leery about, and I just want people to understand my position on that moving forward. So I've offered that amendment, and Mrs. Avezzano seconded it, and I yield back to you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
I'm going to give Mr. Welch a chance to speak because he made the original motion.
Two quick things, just so you understand where I'm coming from. Line 49 on the special ed para, I'm against adding full-time paras at this point in time to what we already had. I would have suggested that you hire 2 part-time people, which would mean there would be no benefits. On the other issue, line 52, which is the partnership coordinator, I quite frankly am not as optimistic as other people are on the success of that position. Understanding the economy and the way business is, and the fact that people are not hiring people, I think you're really pushing the envelope there, thinking that that's going to be a success. I remain to be wrong. When you go ahead and finance this through this budget, I'm just telling you, I don't think it'll work in this economy. Thank you very much.
All right, so we have an amendment on the main motion. Mrs. Benson, you're commenting on the amendment.
This is related to the amendment. And what Mr. Cerisi said, I would like to know from our attorney, can we vote on this in 2 parts? Because he is correct about one part of it.
Mrs. Benson, you need to vote on the motion that's on the floor, the amended motion, and then if it fails, then you can split it up and vote it as 2 motions.
Okay, thank you. Would you repeat that so they all can hear it?
I think we did.
I heard.
Mrs. Avanzato.
Just to Mr. Welch's point, we're talking about special education paras, so hiring 2, of course I like the idea of part-time paras and cutting down on our benefits, but when it comes to special education paras, we may not be able to do that. That does not provide the consistency in a one-on-one situation that the child may need. One other quick, well, I'm not even sure this is, I wanted Mrs. King to address, and I think I'm totally off topic, previous comments made by Mr. Mudge that just went by. So I don't know. Maybe this isn't the right time. But I'm going to take the opportunity to thank Mrs. King for the information we have in our packet. I was impressed by the financial information we have in our packet. Some of it we hadn't seen previously, and I appreciate getting that level of detail. So
You should feel lucky she traded her question for a compliment.
Well, I can't take credit for that. That was definitely from our controller, Mr. Janelle, so he does a really good job on those reports.
Right.
So
excellent job. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. We have one last comment here from Mr. Mudge.
Follow up on these comments, please. With respect to Mr. Welch's comments, I agree with him. Okay, I question the special ed and if there are other ways that can be provided, but certainly on the coordinator, I support that. with respect to the perspectives things, item 14 that Mr. Cerisi said, it says we're going to save $100,000 there. We're not going to save $100,000, folks. It's going to cost us $100,000. Very simple. All you do is look at the mathematics. Okay? Just look at the mathematics. I've sent it in before. I provided it to you. I'd like to have some discussion at some time. I'll be glad to show you why we should close Davisville Elementary School because it's a losing proposition. Okay? In terms of the entire budget, I think it is fruitless for us to do anything tonight, especially in the fact that we haven't even considered we have another $500,000 of revenue that weren't even in this before. Okay? We need to get a summary of what our revenues are, what our assets are, and then come back and look at this and make some decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Cerisi, and then I'll comment.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I do have one additional question. Dr. Roger, this recommended list of cuts comes to approximately $1.6 million. That's taken into account that we will receive an additional $500,000 or $600,000 of revenue in state aid, or this is from what the town has approved in their budget?
We have gotten word from the town that they were not wanting us to, they put us back to last year's state aid number. We're expecting this year's state aid number to come in approximately $544,000 higher than that. I've done a lot of inquiry about this, talked to the commissioner, talked to other people who know the legislature pretty well. From what I'm hearing, there doesn't seem to be anything negative in regards to what people are thinking about this. It sounds like it's going to go. It's not a guarantee, but that's why I feel like we should wait on the rest of it until we know that number for sure, and that's what the town wants us to do.
But this 1.6 number, just to be clear, from my understanding, this 1.6 million number is not taken into account. This is, in other words, this 1.6 million needs to be cut, and that's estimating that we're going to receive an additional $500,000 or $600,000 in funding in state aid.
From state aid, and then another $1 approximately from ESP concessions.
Right, and if we don't receive that, we have additional cuts to make.
Absolutely.
In addition to the cuts that we're making tonight in
yes.
this 1.6
and they'd have to go very deep, obviously.
I think that needs to be clear to the people in the community, is that this 1.6 right now is best case scenario.
Right.
So there could be more coming if state aid doesn't come in at the number that we're hoping it comes in at.
That is correct.
So this number already takes that into account. So
right.
The idea that we're cutting $600,000 more than we really need to cut because is not accurate.
No.
Okay. That's all. I just need that clarity before we vote.
May I comment,
thank
please?
you very much.
May I comment, please?
No, everyone has gotten a
Excuse
chance
me,
to comment
you have
except
had
for
some
myself.
misinformation.
So I've been keeping
First of all, the state aid we're going to get is $624,000, not $544,000. Now, this is transparency. I'm trying to advance the thing, so we're trying to look at that. $625,000 from the state and state aid, not $554,000. Okay? And I would ask
Mr.
our
Mudge,
business director to clarify that.
You're going to need to stop.
It's $75,000 you're talking about. $75,000.
Mr. Mudge.
Okay?
You've
already
your time
cut
has been used. It is now
Madam
time.
Chairman, you've already cut $1.4 million.
It is now time to
from this
call
budget.
the vote on the amendment. Lorene, could you please have a roll call vote?
Larry Cerisi.
Could you read the amendment back, please?
Yes.
This is crazy. This is absolutely lunacy.
Could you make sure you read it back for everyone again?
Fiduciary lunacy.
This is on the amendment, Larry Cerisi, to approve the list, the superintendent's recommended list of cuts. The superintendent's list of cuts as submitted. The amendment to the motion.
So that's to change the motion. So that's the first thing you have to do if you're voting yes to change the motion. If you're voting no, then it's what Mr. Welch's original motion was. So.
Yes.
William Mudge.
How many times do we have to vote to cut these things? We've already voted.
You just have to answer yes or no, Mr. Mudge.
No.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
No.
Linda Avanzado.
Yes.
Mel Boyd Benson.
No.
Don Biscardin.
No.
Okay, so now we are back to Mr. Welch's original motion with taking out the business partnership and also the paraprofessional. We've already all commented on that. I'm the only person who has it, and I guess I would say is that I like Mr. Welch's idea, but I think we're too soon to be able to do that because we can't do part-time paraprofessionals yet. So I don't feel as if that's something we should be voting on right now.
This would be a new hire, and you can take a full-timer that you have and replace them with 2 part-timers in another position.
Can I offer a caveat there? For both of those items, for the business partnerships coordinator, Mr. Welch?
I'm sorry, what?
I would propose that for that I would be offered the opportunity to use that as a position or the equivalent for those kinds of services. In talking with certain people over the course of the week, I feel that there may be some options there where there are companies that already do this kind of work that we could use that money toward building business partnerships with someone who is already part of a firm that does this kind of work, and that we would invest toward that goal. So there would be an option there. For the special education paraprofessional, I would like to include this with the caveat that if and when the option comes to us to possibly do this through part-time, that we explore that option then. But, that we do that when the opportunity presents itself. But right now, the opportunity is not there. So, I would just like to, have them there with those 2 items, I guess those would be 2 amendments to those particular numbers. Maybe that would make it more amenable to you, Mr. Welch?
I don't know, because, in my mind, it's something that comes later anyway.
Right, but right now we don't know what that later is. That kind of works with the ESP concessions piece, why there are no additional cuts.
Correct.
So when that opportunity presents itself, that if there is an opportunity to go with 2 part-times to do that work and it's going to work out just as well, that we take it. But so part of this is kind of a contingency.
All right.
A comment, please.
Are you looking for a new motion? Dr. Ajay, are you saying this is something we can deal with later?
I think we can deal with it later, but, I think if that makes people feel a little more comfortable about voting for those 2 pieces, I would appreciate that, because I think they're needed.
We have a motion on the floor of Mr. Welch's motion of approving this with, I'll look at the numbers in here, number
49 and 52 removing.
49 and 52 taken out, and then also taking the place of 36 and
35.
35. All right, so roll call vote.
May I comment, please?
No, we've already held comment on
No,
this.
you haven't
Kimberly
really
Page.
finished and complete.
Yes.
Point of order.
Richard Welch.
Point of order.
What is your point of order? We
My
have had
point of order
comment.
is we have misinformation on this sheet.
That's not a point of order.
It
Thank you
isn't.
very much.
We have misinformation in the
So
budget.
it is time to
Okay,
vote.
item
You
4 for
had
the
your
record should be
time to
$120,000.
discuss the item on the agenda.
Item 6 breakage
That
should
is
be
now done.
$376,000.
It is now time to take a roll call vote. Mr. Mudge, I'm ruling your your point of order down.
Yes, thank you.
Mrs. Berglund, could you please take the roll call vote?
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welch.
No.
This is your
Wait a
motion?
minute, wait a
This is
minute.
your motion.
This is your motion.
Oh, sorry, I guess I didn't understand which way we were voting. I apologize. Would you restate the motion, please?
This is to take the superintendent's recommendation,
It out so we can hear it down in black
removing items 49 and 52, and adding in 35 and 36.
Could you just say what they are again? Adding back in freshman sports and...
Thank you,
It's
Linda.
adding in freshman sports.
Hockey and gymnastics.
And hockey and
And
gymnastics.
hockey and gymnastics.
Adding all the sports back in and cutting a special
Removing
education
a special ed
paraprofessional.
para, and the North Kingstown High School Business Partnership Coordinator.
So it's my motion, so I vote yes.
Right, it's your motion, Mr.
I'm
Welch.
sorry.
Okay, continue with the roll call vote, please.
Linda Avanzado.
No.
Melvoin Benson.
No.
John Biscardi.
No.
Amy,
I'm sorry, John again?
No.
Larry Cerisi.
I'm voting no, because
And-
35 and 36 have
You
never
need
been...
to give us your reasoning, Mr.
35 and
Mudge. All you have to
36
say
have never
is
been
yes
removed
or no.
from the budget.
All you have to do is say yes or no.
That was a no.
Okay?
All right,
Item
motion
three.
fails.
5-2.
I would like to know if somebody would like to give a motion just on approval of the superintendent's recommended budget reductions for FY13 as submitted on May 22nd, 2012.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so moved, and a second. Are we ready to vote?
Comment. You have incorrect information on here that throws all of this off. On item 4, okay, you can, it's $120,000 one you have. Item 6 on here, it's $376,000. And you're taking things off the agenda, and we don't even know what the revenue stream is? This is ridiculous.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Mudge. I'm going to take a roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Buscardi.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead and comment.
Okay.
Could you please, your number and this number is, they're not even the same strategy.
That's right. Right.
How?
Sure, I'd be glad to explain that to you. First of all, on item 4, that reduction is not 31,000, it's 120,000.
Okay.
Okay?
120,000 is down from 9.2. What we're taking here is from 8 to 7.2, Bill.
Okay.
So your number's wrong.
No, in your spreadsheet here that you said, comparing it to the February 2nd budget, 7th budget, it's down $120,000.
The adjustment is from 8, not from 9.2. We started with 8.
You started with 8%, but the fact of the matter is, let's put it this way. You have 9 teachers, excuse me, that's the next one. You have 31,000. Even in your address, you said it's $120,000. The Blue Cross savings is $120,000.
No more comment time
My
on this issue.
second comment is
So
breakage.
you need to yield your
Breakage
time.
is for-
You've already
excuse me,
given
I
your
didn't finish
time.
this answer.
No, this was Mr. Buscarden's time, and his time is up.
Mr. Scott, how you get that is
Mr. Buscarden's
multiply
time is up.
41,000 times 9.
Mr.
That's
Buscarden's
how
time
you
is
get
up, and
your
Mr.
$376,000 breakage. Because, see, the breakage wasn't in the February 2nd budget.
All right, so, Lorene, if you could take a roll call vote.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzado.
Yes.
Mel Boyd Benson.
No.
John Buscarden.
No.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
Oh.
Motion passes 4-3.
All right. Dr. Auger, do you have anything to say about the CIP or the future bond at this time?
The only, no, I don't have anything about that. You know, actually I do. I have an item, the last item on that page in yellow, the use of the fund balance. It is my hope that in 2 weeks, I'm going to come to you and ask you to make a transfer from our fund balance to our CIP. I feel we desperately need some help with technology. We desperately need some help to get started with air conditioning at the high school, and we also need some help in working on some various maintenance jobs. And obviously, we did not get any CIP support from the town. But our court
That's
case...
$6 million.
Excuse me.
Mr.
But our
Mudge.
court case that is pending will, you know, we don't know with certainty right now exactly what our fund balance is because of that court case. So hopefully, once we, you know, if we ever get some final resolution on that issue, I will be making that proposal at that time. So I'm not going to do that tonight.
All right, we've already discussed item number D, so that brings us to E, approval of the revised music curriculum. Do I have a motion to approve the revised music curriculum? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Point of discussion.
Yes, and now we have a motion on the table. I am open for discussion. I did not skip D. I thought that we had probably gone over everything
We can go back to D.
Oh, okay.
There is something I need to request there.
Well, we do have a motion on the floor and a second. So we need to take care of the music curriculum, and then I apologize. I thought that we had taken care of D, so we can come back to it. So, is Mrs. Benson?
As I stated when I seconded for discussion, could you explain what you mean by the revised music program, Dr. O'Jay?
I'm going to pass that on to Dr. Humbert, who's been involved in that process.
Good, good.
So the music curriculum was written by the group of music teachers. They formed a committee, and they revised their curriculum that was several years old. They brought it to a district curriculum, a group of curriculum coordinators, and we had a set of guidelines that we were looking for within the document. The document needed very little revision, I must say. They added a few things. For example, a glossary, a title page, and updated the standards to the national standards for music education, and resubmitted it, and it's ready to roll.
Okay, thank you. And I was glad to hear you say that the music teachers, they were involved in the process.
Right, and you'll see there's a list of them at the beginning of the document.
Care to it just as long as they were involved, because that is what you refer to.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Benson, the microphone wasn't picking you up, and so that was what I was just checking. Good, continue.
I was waiting for the conversation. But that is what you refer to as education being on common ground. It's very good. That's all I wanted to know. That the teachers were involved, and there were things that they saw because they are the foot soldiers. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I was very impressed by the music curriculum, everything that I read in here. I was particularly impressed by some of the complexity that some of the AP programs and that sort of thing, although I must admit it was a good lesson in my music terminology again, which
Hence they added the glossary at the end,
Yes.
because the district committee felt the same way.
Is there any other comments? Mr. Mudge and
I have
Mrs.
three
Avanzato.
questions. Is this part of the core instruction requirement do we have to meet?
It's a standards-based curriculum for the music program.
It's part of the core instruction? Going to be putting time out. In the form that we have to state? Or,
Well, are you...
How about the BEP? Is it required under the BEP?
Yes, the arts are part of the BEP, yes.
So these are all required for BEP?
Yes.
Okay.
Every course on that curriculum is not required in the BEP. Music education and art education is required in the BEP. But as you know, Mr. Mudge, you ask this all the time, but you know the answer already, that the BEP doesn't specify to what extent you have music programming.
Okay, good. So that leads to my next question, obviously, is what impact does this curriculum have on the current budget? Are we going to have to expand the budget to meet this curriculum, or can it be met with the current monies that are appropriated to the music curriculum?
There's no increase. This curriculum just reflects the programming.
Well, I understand.
In fact, the vote you just took was to reduce music programming by $15,000.
Well, if I look at all these different cuts you have in there, you eliminate a lot more than that.
Mr. Mudge has the floor.
Okay. So again, is this maintaining the present funding level? Can we provide all these within the current funding level, I guess is what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's simple.
Okay, Mrs. Avanzato.
I just wanted to concur with your comments, and it looks really amazing. Like the music students in North Kingstown are excellent. I mean, I've just been floored by them recently. They're just
Nobody doubts that, Linda. That's why we want to keep it.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Let's take a roll call vote, please.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Melvoy Benson.
Yes.
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Dr. Auger, sorry. Let's go back to D.
Yeah, this one is fairly simple in my eyes. I hope you all agree. We heard from Mr. Grundy, and he feels that it is appropriate that, we're already kind of proceeding with this, with the Facilities Subcommittee, but he feels it would be appropriate that the school committee formally ask the Facilities Subcommittee to be a part of this. We have a meeting set up for next week, but he feels it would be better suited to have school committee approval before the Facilities Subcommittee really sinks its teeth into the discussion on the Quidnessa roof and advises us on that.
So moved.
Second.
Seeing no hands, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those
Roll
opposed?
call
A comment.
vote. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Page, please.
Go ahead and comment, Mr. Mudge, and then we'll take a roll call vote.
I'm happy to see that the Facility Subcommittee wants to get involved in this. I think it's something we need to look at. I am a little disturbed that one of the subcommittee members is shocked that he heard that, we never even heard about these roof problems before. And so I think it's something we need to do and get a complete report, back from them, and especially from Sonnefield and so forth, and they should address the warranty issues, and I'd like to see a product out of this, a full report from stem to stern, When did these problems happen? Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Follow the histogram through to see how we got here and how we got into this situation, and what do we have to do to keep it from happening again? Because the school committee didn't know that we had these problems over at that building. And that's shameful. We have to sit up there and listen to the parents, the good parents here, and like Mr. Welch says, geez, we didn't know about this either.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mudge. Mr. Cerisi, and then Mrs. Avanzato.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Topics like this, the yeoman's work is...
Yeah, that's what we're
Yeah.
Yeoman's work is done in these subcommittees, and we get recommendation from these subcommittees. So I know Mr. Mudge has a lot of questions and concerns about this, and rightfully so. I just, I think for the sake of making sure all the information's available, I would recommend for Mr. Mudge or anyone else for that fact from the committee or from the public who have genuine concern about this and want to know the details and make some recommendations and suggestions to the subcommittee that they attend those subcommittee meetings. They are meetings that are open to the public, and they are advertised. So I think it's a great idea for people to get out to those subcommittee meetings, hear the discussion, take part in the discussion, and they'll have all the background information to the work that goes into the recommendation that they'll ultimately make to the school committee.
Thank you. Mrs. Avanzato?
I was about to say something very similar, actually. This is a volunteer subcommittee. To ask them to put out a huge document and report in writing is really onerous. I mean, these people volunteer a lot of time to go over our physical plant, and they volunteer their time. And they do a great job. I've been to several of their meetings, and it's very comprehensive, and the decisions they make are all based on reports they get back from architects and different people that come in and test the roofs. And so I would encourage everyone to go to their meetings, and parents as well. And they're very inclusive, and suggestions are welcome there. So that's all.
Mrs. Benson?
The subcommittee, and you have on here regarding Quidnessa roof, I think it was the subcommittee who first brought it out, and I would think that their work would be done to an extent, because anytime they make a mistake, it's like us making a mistake, because we appointed them and we are responsible. So, and we are all at a different point concerning this Quidnessa. Until I can get a better understanding, and I do not want to take the time tonight because your bell will ring. God forbid you ask the question. But until I can get the time, it seems like we're going backwards instead of forwards by now at the end of everything.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Benson, I was surprised that you stopped. Sorry.
He who can't laugh at himself can't laugh at all. So you're not embarrassing me, you're embarrassing yourself.
Yeah, that may be, you're right. I'm just trying to keep our meetings running efficiently.
Don't
so
try,
that is
honey.
my purpose.
That's why they sent us here.
Please do
You're
try.
embarrassing yourself.
Adjourning in 2 minutes.
And I was making a
Mr.
point
Mudchip, have you
about
already spoken on this topic?
I just had one comment, is...
I was making
I
a
think you've already
comment
spoken on
about
this. I'm giving everybody
facilities
one
committee.
minute to speak on this, and so I think it's only Mr. Buskardon and myself who has not. Mr. Buskardon, did you have anything to add?
This is not
Oh, Mr.
democracy.
Welch, you have
Would you yield your minute, please?
I would yield my minute.
Thank you. Mr. Viscon has yielded his minute to me.
Okay,
Thank
you
you,
get
sir.
Mr. Buskardon's minute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Viscon. You know, whether we do it here or not, don't you think we shouldn't have a comprehensive report on this for the community? This is an old problem, okay? It's going back a couple of years. We heard what the parents said and everything else. Don't you think we should take this apart and, digest what's happened, find out what the cause of the problems were, and what we need to do for the future? Don't you think we should do that? Don't we owe that to the community? I make a recommendation that the administration give us a full report on this.
I think that the Facilities Committee will give us, will delve into it in a very thorough manner, and so I'm not going to ask them to write a report, but I think that they will delve into this sufficiently. Mr. Welch, did you want to say anything?
The only thing that they're asking is for us to tell them to go and look at the roof, and then they will report back their findings to this committee.
But Dick, that's all done. They looked at the roof the other day.
They were looking
All
at
right.
it before we
At
ever
the roof.
looked at it.
Mr. Welch,
Everyone's
you have
looked at the roof.
Mr. Welch has the floor. Mr. Welch, would you like to continue?
No, I would like to go home.
Call the question.
All right, so everyone is
When you
commented.
get your
Could we do a roll call
future
vote?
dividends in place.
Okay.
Richard Welsh.
Yes, ma'am.
Linda Avanzato.
Linda?
Yes. I said yes.
Mel Boyd Benson.
No, ma'am.
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Ma'am.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right, we have three policies on, I will say the level 3 grievance decision was not heard tonight, so we will not be going any further into that matter that is on the agenda. The next things we have are the three policies that have been updated, and Dr. Humbert has been talking to the principals and to our Director of Special Education to make sure that these are done in accordance with the law, and so that everything has been revised. I would ask if the committee could approve G1, 2, and 3 as a whole. Do I have a motion for that?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, we can still have discussion.
So you want the motion? I'll make the motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, yes, discussion, Mr. Welch.
Is it your recommendation as chair of the policy committee that these be passed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Cerisi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the work the administration and the policy subcommittee has done on these policy revisions, and I understand that there's been some changes in the federal guidelines as far as the student behavioral intervention and the student restraint, and that is part of the reason that we are revising these policies. However, again, I really like to see more involvement with the parents. I would have liked to seen these policies. I would have liked to seen CELAC involved in these policy revisions, just for to express some of their thoughts, concern, feedback, input. That's the reason that the subcommittee exists. And to my knowledge, that subcommittee was not part of these discussions and these policy revisions. Again, we need to realize that that is, to my knowledge, the only subcommittee that we have that is mandated by state regulations. I believe our Health and Wellness Subcommittee is as well. But CELAC is a subcommittee that's mandated by state and federal regs. It's not just a subcommittee that, we can choose to have or not to have. And And I'd really like to see them more involved when we have discussions and decisions to make on special education matters. I know this isn't particularly pertaining to special education students, but a lot of these student behavior and behavioral intervention and physical restraint do involve very much involve our special education population. So before I'm ready to vote to approve, I would like to see them presented to that subcommittee.
I'll second it.
Or at least invite, a couple of members of that subcommittee into the central office to discuss these revisions. And I'm not saying that you need to yield to them for approval. Just involve them in the process. It makes people feel a lot better.
Is that a motion, Mr.
Well, Mr.
Cerisi?
Cerisi, I would be willing, if we want to take the motion off the table and just approve 1 and 2 and wait for 3 until we have the CLAC meeting on June 11th, I believe it is.
Sure, I could support that.
Okay, so why don't we had somebody who made the motion and seconded it, so would you both remove that?
Yes, I'll remove the second.
Could you make a motion just to approve 1 and 2?
I'll make the motion to approve policies listed as number 1 and number 2.
Second.
Okay, so now we have a slightly different discussion. Is there any further discussion on that? Mr.
Yes.
Mudge?
I thoroughly agree with Mr. Cerisi on this policy, but I also think the other policies as well should go not only to the CLAC committee as well, the student conduct and the behavioral intervention, student behavior and discipline. I think they all should go there. We should get an input. I'm disappointed they haven't. But I think we also ought to send this thing to our faculty and get some input from our teachers. Have we done that?
We had 6 administrators working on this committee. We met several times, put in several hours each time, and then from that, Mrs. Santa and I reviewed the legal documents that Mr. Cerisi referred to. We updated that. That took another extensive amount of time. We met again following that. The principals that were represented handle discipline in the schools. They have a lot of expertise in the practices and the policies, the practices at the school level. So there was quite a bit of input regarding this. The physical restraint came right from the regulations, so the terminology is directly from the regulations. The JICDR with student behavior and discipline regulations, that's on an administrative level, and that had levels of offenses that haven't been used in years to be updated. The first one, the JICD, there are minimal revisions to that one, just wordings, outdated terminology regarding students' appearance and things like that. So that was very minimal change. But the JICDR2 with the physical restraint was based on the Board of Regents. Also in the first one, the JICD, the disabilities section, students with disabilities section handling behavior with them was right from the Board of Regents regulations. And the JICDR was the outdated levels of offenses. And also we updated the end of that with new policies to make references to policies that we now have on bullying and other policies that are related. So there was an extensive amount of work that went into these.
Yeah, not that I appreciate that, but once again, I know you said administrators. Did the teaching staff at all, do you know, in the school level, were these discussed with the teachers? You know, the principals, kind of went over these things with the teachers as well?
If I can address that, I don't know to what extent any principals would have been talking about these particular policies with teachers. But as an assistant principal of a high school for 9 years, responsible for a lot of discipline policies over the years, I can tell you that teachers certainly weigh in on these things in the day-to-day business of the school. So, I trust the administrators in this case. They're the people who, oversee the discipline. They're in contact with teachers about discipline matters all the time. And they get a lot of weigh-in from teachers on those kinds of day-to-day issues. So I'm sure they're taking the teachers' ideas into account when they look at these things. You know, a lot of times, teachers are not necessarily interested in going to one more committee meeting, particularly if it has, you know, little to do with their expertise and their job. You know, so I don't want to get too bogged down with, you know, necessarily, I think we're consulting the right people in making this, and we put in a lot of time to do it. So, you know, I don't want to go overboard. There's always another group that we can talk to. Doesn't mean we necessarily have to. Sometimes I think we need to trust the people who are putting these things together.
Well, the fact of the matter is, though, they're the people that have to implement it. And that's what concerns me.
Davanzato has the floor.
I'm going to support this motion on the first two policies, but and I appreciate all the hard work and the fact that these policies reflect federal regulation and law. I understand that. But to me, it's absolutely critical that some dialogue happen or knowledge or information to the parents, to CLAC, before we do implement things like this. And I know, Kim, you usually do that. I mean, when I was on policy sub, you are always in there with all kinds of different groups of people and parents, and you email it all over the district usually. I mean, not like you have had anything else on your mind or anything lately. But so that's the only thing that I would say. I appreciate all the hard work done, and I'd say the third policy, once CLAC's taken a look and given feedback, I would feel better then.
I've added the CLAC policy to my agenda so that I can make sure that I'm there to talk to that group. Great. So if there's no further discussion, why don't we take a roll call vote?
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Melvoy Benson.
Yes, to the part about CLAC.
This is to approve policies 1 and 2.
The one that contain the CLAC
John
and their
Bastarden?
participation.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? We are adjourned, but I would like to ask the committee if you could take 5 minutes to go into executive session. I'd like to speak to the committee.